What happened? Why am I here? I distinctly remember lying in a pool of my own blood just a short while ago. Gradually, my eyes grew darker, foreshadowing my imminent death. And when the darkness finally came, I thought it was the end. Frightened, Beatrice thought. Why do I see him in front of me? This is the man who caused me to die. He's my childhood friend that killed me as an adult. And why does he look so young? Have I woken up to the day I first saw him? Have I traveled back in time for some reason? Ritter, is that you? What's even going on? Beatrice asked the boy standing in front of her. Do you know my name yet? Question after question was answered by Ritter. Niece, how are you acting? Have you forgotten that His Highness is standing before you? Beatrice's aunt, Farina Surus, exclaimed. It's all right. Meeting me for the first time, the young lady must have been somewhat embarrassed. I take no offense to her at all and hold no grudge. Ritter assured the woman. I remember Ritter was fond of assuring his entourage that all was well. Those were the exact words I often heard him say. Also, he liked to call me a common squirrel. For so many years, I considered him a true friend, thought Beatrice, looking at the boy standing before her. Ritter is one of the few who knows my secret. He knows that I'm only half squirrel shapeshifter. Just when my childhood dreams began to turn into reality, he bit me in the neck with his poisonous fangs. Ever since she was a little girl, Beatrice was always alone. Her only friends were books. That all changed when the girl met Ritter. On that ill-fated day, Farina told the girl that she had received a marriage proposal. Since Beatrice was the daughter of a duke, many families wanted to be related to her. Think of him as your future husband and serve him wholeheartedly. If you want to be a good wife, then act like you are his servant. You must always bow down to your husband. Farina admonished the girl. Even your mother, who was stubborn, did that, so you can do it too. Now, say hello to His Highness. You must go out to him and bow courteously before him. He is the possessor of the noble white snake bloodline. You don't need to speak so formally to me, said Beatrice to second Prince Ritter Astrum. On the day they met, he was only 10 years old. From that day on, Ritter and Beatrice became good friends. But after they became engaged, Beatrice's world shrank greatly. Farina began to pinch the girl in everything. She controlled her niece under the guise of teaching her bride knowledge. Beautiful clothes, appetizing food became a real luxury for Beatrice. The girl's only entertainment became old books and outdated newspapers. Sometimes Beatrice turned into a small red squirrel and ran away to the garden to watch people there. Beatrice dreamed of becoming a merchant in the future and traveling the world. She wanted to visit all the cities and countries she had read about in books. Beatrice told her Aunt Farina about her dream, but she did not support it. Farina often called her niece a shameless creature and accused her of being abandoned because her parents were ashamed of her. Wait, if I understand you correctly, you're giving up your place as queen in order to become an ordinary merchant and travel the world, Ritter clarified once to the girl. But you told me you didn't want this marriage either, didn't you? You told me that you had no choice but to obey your mother, reminded Beatrice. You're right, I did say that. And if you want to become a merchant, I will support you since you and I are friends. I have no one but you, replied Ritter to the girl. Beatrice trusted her friend Ritter. She even told him where she hid her savings, how she would hide from the guards of the manor, and which merchant guild she would join. The girl wanted to run away from home on the day of her majority. When Beatrice turned 18, Ritter came to her to say goodbye. Take care of yourself. I'm sure everything will be fine in your life. You will surely meet a girl whom you will later call your wife, said Beatrice, and hugged her friend tightly. Suddenly, Ritter clamped his sharp, poisonous fangs into the girl's neck. Beatrice never realized why her friend did that to her. Before he died, Beatrice saw her Aunt Farina approach Ritter. She whispered something to Ritter. But why are they together? Was this really their plan together? Ritter walked up to the dying girl and took her ability. Beatrice wanted very much to avenge Ritter for his betrayal, but suddenly her strength left her. Ritter's poison had begun to take effect. Now Beatrice stood before Ritter again. It was the day they had first met. Beatrice walked up to Ritter and answered him with a slap. Farina and the maid standing nearby gasped in surprise. No one expected such a reaction from Beatrice. The guards ran up to Beatrice and pulled her away from the prince. Beatrice turned into a squirrel and ran into the garden. She was tired of being in a place where no one loved her. She decided to go to the north, to the territory of the city of Aslan. In the market square, Beatrice found a wagon that was going to Aslan. The girl sat on the roof of the wagon and set off on her journey. In the city of Aslan, the girl was born and grew up. It was also where she had been killed by Ritter in her past life. Ritter looked at his palm. On it lay a dislodged fang. What an ungrateful bastard! Let her not even dare to come back to me. As soon as I see her again, I'll beat her to a pulp, grumbled the irritated Farina. Viscountess Farina, you said you always wanted to introduce your niece to me. Let's take this as an unforeseen experience, said Ritter to the woman. I really don't understand what's gotten out of her all of a sudden. And why did she just make so much noise? Why did she react like that? Exclaimed Farina, fell to her knees in front of the prince. Are you saying that your niece became agitated on her own? Maybe you said something to her that drove her to it? Maybe something about killing a young prince outside the palace and his brother, on whose neck you can unhook a collar and leash? Ritter asked. Why, I would never tell that to my niece. You know I have pledged my heart and loyalty to you and the queen. I will pay for this sin. I beg you very much to forgive me, Farina exclaimed. I will gladly go to the duchy to prevent the rumors. I will take all the blame before they begin to suspect you. Well, good. For that, I'll let you use the magic crystal, said Ritter to the woman. Beatrice knew that her friend Ritter was very worried that the first prince existed besides him. He was his greatest weakness. At the moment, the first prince was still alive. Beatrice wanted to meet the first prince, but unfortunately she didn't know where to find him. The first prince had been missing on the battlefield since he was a child. He also possessed extraordinary supernatural powers. Many people wanted to get their hands on his power. Beatrice knew that in the future, under Duke Aslan's leadership, the royal army would defeat the Holy Empire in just one battle. However, it would lead to the beginning of a more horrifying conflict. It would become known as the first failure of the Golden Lion Duke. Since I possess the knowledge of the future, I will be able to use it to change my life, rejoiced Beatrice. The Duke of the Golden Lion was called Leonhart Eld Aslan. He was the father of Beatrice. Never before had the girl met him. The Duke had never once come to visit her, nor had he answered her letters. I will offer the Duke a deal he cannot refuse. In return, I will ask him to stay on this continent until I come of age. I will not give up on my dream. I will become a merchant, after all. Beatrice promised herself. After spotting the guards outside the Duke's castle, the girl hurried away. Suddenly, she heard one of the guards call her by name. My lady, please don't go. Lady Aslan, you cannot go out alone. It is too dangerous. I will escort you back to the house. One of the guards knelt down in front of the squirrel and took her in his arms. With his head held proudly high, the guard carried Beatrice into the Duke's castle. Lady Aslan, you have returned to us, senior maid Joanna exclaimed. Beatrice was treated with deep respect at the Duke's castle. The girl was warmed, changed, and fed heavily. Joanna, I want to make a deal with my father, Beatrice announced. She must have craved her father's attention for a long time. She must be very lonely. The master has been supplying her with money and sending her letters for years, but I'm sure that's not enough for a little girl. Joanna thought wistfully. Lady Aslan, right now the Lord is on the battlefield outside the continent, but if he learns that you miss him so much, he will surely defeat all enemies and return home as soon as possible, replied Joanna. Well then, I should like to have a word with the next most powerful person in this house, exclaimed Beatrice. Suddenly the doors rattled open. A dark-haired boy entered the room. Beatrice guessed that it was Carlitos El Aslan. He was 15 years old at this point. Well, nice to meet you, Squirrel Runner, said Carlitos. Young master, the young mistress is at a delicate age right now. Try to communicate with her more carefully, asked Joanna to Carlitas. Beatrice had never seen Carlitas before, but she knew that from a young age he excelled at swordsmanship. The battlefield had become his second home. People called him the Lion Lord. He was Beatrice's brother. "Sister, why do you smell like a serpent?" Carlitas asked. Carlitas looked at his sister carefully with his piercing yellow eyes. Beatrice had heard that under that gaze, many fell into a stupor. But for some reason, she felt no fear. She was pleased to be in the same room with her brother. "And I see you have absolutely no fear of me," Carlitas remarked, taking his sister in his arms. For a long time, Beatrice had no name. At her aunt's estate, they called her Half. She was only half werewolf. Unlike other werewolves, the girl had black, inexpressive eyes. Dragon, snake, and lion werewolves had beautiful golden eyes. And the stronger the werewolf's blood manifested, the more intense the golden hue was. All the werewolves of the Aslan family were famous for their bright golden eyes. Beatrice alone had black ones. When Beatrice was 8 years old, a letter arrived from her father. There he gave the girl's name. "The size of a squirrel is about the size of the tip of my tail. Therefore, I will call her Tail," Carlitas thought to himself. "Mistress, before the young master came, you were looking for a master, weren't you?" Joanna reminded the girl. "Since the master is absent right now, the house manager is jealous of the house instead. I'll go get him, but in the meantime, you can enjoy talking to each other. It's been a long time since you've seen each other. I know you have a lot to discuss," said Joanna and left the room. Joanna saw the birth of the young mistress. She knew that for a long time they could not think of a name for the girl, because an inappropriate name would only mean trouble. According to the traditions of the North, it was necessary to observe the child for a while, and only then to give it a name. Beatrice was nameless until she was 8 years old. Everyone called her simply Baby Girl. "They say she came into the house in the guise of a squirrel, only I've never seen her like that," Carlitas thought as he looked at his little sister. "Quickly turn into a squirrel," Carlitas demanded of his sister. For years, Farina had convinced the girl that her family hated her. So Beatrice decided that once she turned into a squirrel, her brother would crush her too. While in the Duke's castle, the girl was constantly expecting threats and attacks from her relatives. I wonder what's going on in her little head right now. What is she thinking about? I know that ever since I was a little girl, the aura of a beast has been emanating from me. All the little animals run away from me as soon as I appear in their sight. Carlitas thought to himself, why am I hesitating? Why am I afraid to turn into a squirrel? My brother has done nothing wrong to me up to this point, so should I be afraid of him? Beatrice soothed herself. I know for a fact that, unlike me, he is a powerful lion shifter. He's the pride of the family and the public's favorite. But nothing bad will happen if I befriend him, right? It would be nice to have him as my ally. Making up her mind, Beatrice turned to the little squirrel. Look at that, it's so cute. Carlitas's mind raced. I never realized you two were related. Unlike you, your sister is a cute little squirrel, exclaimed the guard standing behind Carlitas. Carlitas decided to treat his sister to a seed. Beatrice took the seed and climbed onto her brother's arm. Mistress Beatrice, your father invites you for companionship. Joanna, who had entered the room, exclaimed, I apologize for interrupting your reunion with your brother, but you should reincarnate back into a human to speak with your father. You can do so in the other room. I'll get you your dress. Entering her father's study, the girl saw a long-haired young man. It was the manager of the Duke's castle. Young mistress, this is the first time we are seeing each other. I manage the affairs of the house in the absence of the Duke. I am Count Zealot. It is a great honor to meet the young mistress of the great Aslan family, said the young man. And my name is Beatrice. My acquaintances call me Betty for short. I have heard that the Lord has summoned me, said the girl. The Duke said to contact him as soon as you get here with a communicator. With it, you will be able to contact the Duke, who is currently on the battlefield, said Zaloth, pointing to the yellow ball with his hand. You will be able to tell your father how long you have missed your family. Is that why you came here? I would like to point out that right now there is unrest everywhere in the north. You should understand why the Lord sent you to the capital." Beatrice involuntarily remembered her Aunt Farina. The woman literally hated her and often insulted her, calling her a filthy half-breed. "I think you acted rashly. You should have stayed in the capital for a while longer. Once the war was over, rest assured your father would have taken you home." Count Zaloth's words hurt Beatrice. She was not pleased to hear it. Carlitas saw his sister's depressed mood. "Count, don't you think you talk too much?" Carlitas asked, putting his arm around his sister's shoulders. "I apologize. You are right. My concerns have overstepped their bounds. Please forgive me if I have offended the young mistress in any way," said the Earl, bowing low. Zaloth motioned for Beatrice to walk over to the comm and place her hands on it. "Why are you in the castle now and not in the capital? Did something happen in the capital?" asked the Duke to his daughter. Beatrice noted to herself that today was the first time she heard your father's voice. "Damn, how am I supposed to explain to him my coming here? I can't tell him I hit the other prince." Beatrice thought fearfully. "I know that Ritter is a traitor and will kill me in the future, but if I tell it, many will think I've gone mad. If father finds out that I hit the second prince, he might get angry with me, for it could be a disgrace to the family." "Why aren't you saying anything? You don't have to hide anything from me. Tell me the whole truth," asked the Duke to his daughter. "I came here because I punched the other prince, Ritter, in the face," said Beatrice in a firm voice. She realized that such a thing could not be hidden. It would surely be reported to the Duke. "I don't want to marry the second prince, but my aunt insists on it, so I had to hit the prince." "You were good for doing that. You shouldn't do what you don't want to do. On top of that, no one gave your aunt permission to marry you." Carlitas put his hand on his sister's shoulder. He understood how hard it was for her, so he wanted to comfort her. "The royal family was the first to cross the line, so don't worry about your deed. Once the war is over, I will send the royal family a letter of rejection so you can safely return to the capital," said the Duke to his daughter. "But I came here to talk to you about the war. I know you are in the logistics business. I have some suggestions and ideas about it," said Beatrice. "Go back to the capital. It's not safe in the north, and you shouldn't think about war. It's none of your business," replied the Duke. "I can see that you are very upset. You don't want to go back to the capital?" asked Carlitas to his sister. Beatrice was surprised that her brother was interested in her opinion. Rarely did anyone care about her thoughts and feelings. Usually, no one paid attention to them. "Beatrice can't stay in the north, as any minute even our castle could turn into a front line," said the Duke. "Father, you can't see Beatrice right now, but I want to tell you that your words are hurting her," exclaimed Carlitas. "I hope you have seen your sister in the guise of a squirrel. You must realize that she cannot defend herself, and there is no guarantee that she will be able to escape if the enemy advances," the Duke insisted. "Father, Beatrice looks very frail right now. She probably hasn't finished her meal. It seems to me that she will simply faint on the way home. She can't be let go in that condition," said Carlitas. "All right, let her stay in the castle until I return," agreed the Duke. A frightened guard burst into the room. He reported that the food warehouses were on fire. The fire was spreading at a furious rate. Looking at the burning warehouses, Beatrice realized that this event is a precursor to the great failure of the Duke. From her past, the girl knew that this time, the always victorious Duke's army would suddenly retreat. The war would last for another 5 years. Many people would hate the Duke. They will blame him for what happened. All this will shake the spirit of the kingdom. Because of the damage suffered, the Duke's military power would noticeably decrease, and even the population of his duchy would shrink. "I know the future, so I will change it. I won't let the Duke fail," Beatrice decided to herself. Sometime later, the arsonist was found, but unfortunately, he committed suicide. It was impossible to find out any information. Carlitos noticed the symbol of the sacred empire on the arsonist's hand. A worried storekeeper approached Carlitos. The provisions were to be sent to the front tomorrow, but they had all been burned. The storekeeper didn't know who could provide them with large amounts of food. "Sir, forgive me for allowing a rat to appear. As a person acting as a duke, I should have been more careful to prevent such an incident," Count Zealot exclaimed as he approached. "Why do you say that? No one could have prevented something like this from happening," exclaimed the storekeeper. "Pardon me for interfering with your conversation, but I had an idea about the provisions," shouted Beatrice. "And what did the young lady come up with?" the storekeeper asked with a smile. No one could believe that a small child could actually come up with something worthwhile. "We'll ship this one," Beatrice exclaimed and showed the small red fruits. "You want to send these awful vegetables? That's a very poisonous plant," wondered the storekeeper. Beatrice knew that this poisonous plant spread at an incredible rate. Many people claimed that if you ate the fruit, you could get severe stomach pains. However, Beatrice knew how to properly prepare this plant. "Young lady, I really appreciate your intention, but right now, we have absolutely no time to play games. If you're bored, I'll get the maids here right away," said Count Zealot to the girl. "Count, you say that because you don't know the advantages of this plant. For one, it can be grown anywhere. And yes, it has poison in it, but only in a certain place," Beatrice exclaimed. "I will eat the fruit of this plant in front of you right now and prove to you that it is completely harmless. Many people believe that the plant causes stomach pains, but it does not." Although many people doubted Beatrice's words, the girl was still able to prove her point. Even hours later, she felt great. Many people cut off the stems of this plant and don't eat them, but in fact, the stems contain an antidote to the poison that is in the fruit. If you eat the whole plant, nothing happens, explained Beatrice. "The stems of this plant are very tasty and can be eaten in unlimited quantities. I learned about it by accident. One day I overheard the maids talking. They were talking about a man who wanted to commit suicide, so he ate some of the fruits together with the stems. He didn't die. Absolutely nothing happened to him. The guards also decided to try the plant on themselves. They were surprised that nothing happened to them. There were no stomach pains. We'll do some more experiments on this plant today. And if everything goes smoothly, also tomorrow we'll dig it up and send it to the front lines," the storekeeper promised the girl. "If I succeed in preventing the Duke's failure, the war will soon be over. In this way, I shall succeed in persuading him to allow me to stay in his castle until I come of age," Beatrice thought to herself. "Also, I will ask my father for a reward for my help. By what means will I be able to get a good capital for my future? Is this child really that brilliant? It can't be. Now what am I to report to them about?" Count Zealoth thought irritably. In the evening, Carlitos invited Beatrice to escort her to the room prepared for her. "So nice to see you two have become friends after all," Joanna said with a smile. When Beatrice entered the room prepared for her, she froze in surprise. The room was simply huge, expensively decorated. At her aunt's house, Beatrice lived in an old attic. Her room was gray and uncomfortable. "Brother, you shouldn't give me such a luxurious room. Let me stay in some humble and no one's room," asked the girl. It seemed to her that it was all a deception. Can't people she hadn't seen in years treat her so well? "Why do you say such things? Is there a reason why you're giving up this room?" Carlitos asked, surprised. "You should fear nothing while you are here. You are worthy of the finest room in this palace. Don't fill your head with nonsense." Carlitos took his sister in his arms again. "You have done well today, so you are worthy of the most beautiful room." Not only was the room lovely, but also the view from the terrace. Beatrice praised herself for deciding to escape from the capital to her father, after all. If she hadn't, she would never have seen such beauty. "How great that I decided to make this trip after all. I will stay in this castle until I come of age, and then I will realize my dream and see the world with my own eyes," Beatrice promised herself. "Well, Tale, have a good night's sleep. If there's anything you don't like, tell me about it right away," said the girl's Carlitis and left her room. How could the plan I had so carefully prepared have failed? It was spoiled by the little girl. If it wasn't for her, everything would have been fine. Irritated, Count Zaloth hissed and pounded his fists on the desk. The comm unit lit up. That's the last thing I need. And why did they choose to communicate with me today? I want to hear good news from you today, said the second queen of the kingdom of Astrum. The queen got up from the soft couch and walked over to Viscountess Farina Surus. How dare you stay out of touch with the royal family? As soon as I praised you for a minor matter, you immediately messed it up. I don't think you'll get away with it this time. Or are you going to make it up to me? I hope you won't make such mistakes again. The next morning, the maids helped Beatrice choose a suitable dress. "Young mistress, you are so pretty!" the maids exclaimed. Beatrice remembered that in her aunt's house, only money or jewelry was called cute, but not her. Such kindness on the part of the servants was surprising to her. Whether one compares the Duke's estate and a house in the capital, one finds striking differences. Hospitality flourishes in the castle. It has huge, beautiful rooms, and I'm surrounded by kind, friendly people. It feels like I'm in a fairy tale. Beatrice thought. "How did you sleep?" asked Carlitis to his sister at breakfast. Beatrice was surprised that her brother had agreed to eat with her at the same table. Farina had forbidden the girl to eat breakfast with her. The Viscountess said that Beatrice's presence spoiled her appetite. Therefore, Beatrice was used to eating alone. "I shall probably go to my room. I'll come back here when you've finished your breakfast," said Beatrice to her brother. She didn't want to spoil his appetite with her presence. "What did you say? Did you forget something in your room? Is that why you want to go back there? Or do you not want to have breakfast with me at the same table?" asked Carlitis to the girl. "No, why not? I want to eat with you," exclaimed Beatrice. "Then sit down and eat. Why do you need to go to your room?" said Carlitis. Beatrice noted to herself that it was much more fun to eat in company than alone. It was getting warm in her soul not only from the food, but also from the relaxed conversation. "I have long wondered why everyone here treats me so well. Most likely my father hasn't explained to them how to treat me yet. I haven't been here for over 5 years. All the servants know how the Duke really treats me," thought Beatrice, pacing the hallway. "My father thinks I'm a burden, so he dumped me off on my late mother's sister, who hates me fiercely. He hasn't helped me in any way and has never answered my letters. I think he hates me at all. I'm sure that as soon as my father comes back here and tells the servants how I should be treated, my life will be just like it was in the capital." "Okay, calm down. There's no need to get yourself worked up ahead of time. I know the future now. I'll be able to avoid a lot of problems and unpleasant situations." Beatrice took her bag and went to the garden to get some berries. Suddenly, she heard the tree calling her. This was the first time something like this had happened to her. "Young mistress, wait, don't go anywhere. It was recently announced that a demonic beast is approaching the castle. We should run to the house as soon as possible," exclaimed a maid who ran up to the girl. A white squirrel flew over Beatrice's head. After hopping a little on the branches, the squirrel landed on Beatrice's head. "I finally found you!" squeaked the squirrel. Suddenly, a strong wind blew. It lifted Beatrice off the ground and carried her away. "My God, a demonic beast has kidnapped our mistress. We've gotten into big trouble. How are we going to tell the Duke about this?" screamed the maid in a frightened voice. Carlitis wanted to make a lovely white coat for his sister. To get a suitable coat, he went hunting in the forest. From behind the bushes, a huge white wolf came straight at Carlitis. His pelt was perfect for the coat. "I wonder what Tails will say when I give her a white coat. I bet she'll be very happy," thought Carlitis on his way home. Near the castle, he saw a large gathering of servants. Carlitis immediately guessed that something had happened. "Young master, we sent guards to the front to help your father in the war, so the manor was left virtually unprotected. Unbeknownst to me, a demonic beast appeared from nowhere. It was a blizzard squirrel," narrated one of the guards. "Demonic beasts had never entered our territory before. The snowstorm squirrel appeared suddenly and stole our mistress. Forgive us, it's our fault. It's probably the same squirrel that killed the smugglers in the mountains. My sister is in danger. Quickly gather the rest of the guards. We need to destroy this squirrel, shouted Carlitis. Looking around, Beatrice noticed she was at the edge of the forest. At last you and I meet, pronounced an unfamiliar voice. Look up, I'm here. Unfortunately, the beast that could have been my vessel is of such small size. It took a long time to find you, Fragment. Fragment? Are you talking about me now? Beatrice clarified. Yes, you are a fragment of the star. You are also a part of me. To be honest, I am a constellation, the ruler of all stars. To be more precise, I am a constellation of squirrels, the forerunner of the beastmen. In ancient times, I saved the world from destruction. Roughly speaking, I am your ancestor. And more importantly, it was because of me that you ended up here. When you died, I used my power to transport you through time. I wish I could tell you so much more, but it's getting late. I have to leave. I ask you very much when I disappear, then take care of this demonic beast. With its help, I will be able to contact myself in the future. I still have a lot more to tell you. The next time we meet, I'll tell you why I sent you back in time. Hey, wait, don't go. You can't just disappear like that all of a sudden. I still have a lot of questions for you. Why am I here? Do I have some kind of mission, or am I supposed to accomplish some kind of goal? Beatrice exclaimed. The squirrel sitting in her arms only looked at her in silence. Suddenly, Beatrice heard someone's cautious footsteps. The girl remembered that in this forest there were often quite large animals. A guy in a long black cloak came out of the forest to the edge of the forest. Who are you? What are you doing here? Do you live here? Or did you come here from the city? If you don't like something, then I won't approach you. I'll stay here so you don't have to be afraid of me, said Beatrice. She could see that the boy was looking at her cautiously. A fine, nasty rain came down. The boy suggested Beatrice to follow him. He himself avoided me at first, so why is he calling me to come with him now? He seems strange. Beatrice thought as she followed the boy. A white squirrel appeared from the girl's bag. What is that? It's a demonic beast. Don't move. I'll get rid of it right now. The boy exclaimed and pulled his hand towards the squirrel. Don't touch it. Although it's a demonic beast, it's pretty harmless. Besides, this squirrel is needed by me. It can't be destroyed. You could say it's my friend, so I won't let it be harmed, exclaimed Beatrice, covering the squirrel with her body. Okay, I won't touch her, but if I notice her trying to hurt anyone, I will destroy her immediately, warned the boy. Come in under my cloak. You can't be out in the rain. Soon your clothes will be completely soaked. Not far from here I saw a shack. Let me take you there. The boy covered Beatrice with his cloak. A short while later, Beatrice saw a small wooden shack in front of her. It's probably a temporary dwelling for hunters or travelers, so you can safely go in, said the guy. When the guy took off his hood, Beatrice noticed a black patch over his eyes. Even though he has a patch over his eyes, he's still very handsome. He has a neat, pointy nose and delicate skin. Under his right eye is a barely noticeable mole. Wait, I shouldn't stare at strangers like that, Beatrice thought to herself. A while later, the guy melted the fireplace and invited the girl to come over to warm herself. Before reading books, I couldn't believe that it was possible to fall in love with a person's appearance. Now I understand why some women lose their heads over handsome men. Most likely this guy is a common womanizer, Beatrice thought, looking at the guy. And what are you thinking about now? Suddenly the guy asked. Nothing like that. I suddenly happened to remember that I haven't eaten in a while. A snack would be nice, replied Beatrice. The guy took out a cookie from his bag, and after breaking it into several pieces, gave it to Beatrice. Since the guy had nothing but cookies, Beatrice decided to make a nice lunch. She went out to the yard to pick tuberosum. Do you even know what this plant is? The boy asked. Yes, it's tuberosum. It grows absolutely everywhere. I often cook various dishes from it. Wait a little while, I'll make some delicious soup, Beatrice replied. Have you decided to poison me? Clarified the boy. What's the point of me poisoning you? Inquired Beatrice. All right, forget it. Let's pretend this conversation never happened. Embarrassed, the boy muttered. He had already been assassinated several times by mercenaries. He constantly felt like they wanted to kill him. You were confused by the tuberosum? I didn't explain anything to you, sorry. It's actually a safe plant if you prepare it properly. You can be sure you won't get poisoned by trying my soup, said Beatrice. There is an antidote in the stems of this plant. If you chew on a couple of them, nothing will happen no matter how much tuberosum you eat. Beatrice held out a few stalks of the plant to the boy. That red-haired girl is still the same as before. I was always fascinated by her deep black eyes, glowing with curiosity like the night sky. Many years have passed, but nothing has changed. I still remember her, thought the boy. Toward evening, the rain finally stopped. Let's go together over those mountains over there, Beatrice suggested. Alas, this is where you and I will say goodbye. See you later, young lady. Try not to get sick after today's walk, said the boy, and vanished into thin air. The search for Beatrice continued for several hours. Finally, the guards found her near an old wooden shack. Beatrice, are you hurt? Are you all right? Exclaimed Carlitus, grabbing his sister tightly by the shoulders. So her name is Beatrice? I finally recognize her name. Come to think of it, hiding her identity turned out to be the right decision. But why are the guards calling her mistress? Isn't she just an ordinary servant? Thought the guy was watching from behind a tree. And who is that young man next to her? Who is he to her? It's obvious that he cares for her very much. Suddenly, Carlitus cast his gaze into the thicket of the forest. It seemed to him that someone was watching him intently. One of the guards addressed Carlitus by name. Ooh, almost got caught. And this guy's got some damn sharp instincts. And now I know he's Duke Aslan's son. But still, what's Beatrice's connection to the Aslan family? We'll have to find out more about that. Give him to me quickly. His death will be quick and painless, ordered Carlitus to his sister. I will not give him to you. He has done me no harm, exclaimed the girl. She didn't understand why it was the second person who wanted to kill her squirrel. You may not believe me, but this squirrel is completely harmless. She hasn't done anything bad to me. And I have a reason why I want to keep her. I can't tell you anything yet, but just trust me. Suddenly, everything swam in front of Beatrice's eyes, and the girl felt dizzy. A moment later, she fainted. You see, your sister's body is different from yours. That's why she got a fever because of a little rain, explained the doctor. Beatrice had been lying in bed with a high fever for days. No medication could help her. She wasn't even injured. Is it just a common cold? Still, she is very fragile and weak. I'm sorry that this happened. I will definitely protect her next time. I won't let anyone hurt my sister. Carlitus promised himself. As soon as Beatrice felt a little better, she immediately went outside. When the girl lived with her aunt, she was seldom allowed out of the house. All day long, she sat in her room in the attic. From the conversations of the servants, Beatrice realized that soon the Duke should arrive. The fighting had died down, so he could return home. The maids helped Beatrice put on her prettiest dress. The girl wanted to meet her father properly. Beatrice saw her father for the first time. He was tall and broad-shouldered. However, he frightened the girl with his icy stare. Someone tell me for mercy, why is this child still here? The Duke asked unexpectedly. Beatrice startled. She absolutely did not expect such a reaction. The Duke held out his hand to his daughter. Beatrice squirmed, expecting a blow. When she lived with Viscountess Farina Ciuris, she had beaten the girl for any misbehavior. Beatrice thought that the Duke had also decided to punish her for living in his house for so long. The Duke was surprised and froze on the spot. He didn't understand why his daughter was so afraid of him. "Father, have you finally returned? I'm glad to see you home," exclaimed Carlitus. "Carl, you did a great job on your assignment. Thank you so much for your help," said the Duke to his son. "What's that got to do with me? It's all Beatrice's fault. She's the one who made it all up." Carlitus walked over to his sister and hugged her tightly by the shoulders. Beatrice decided to proceed with extreme caution. carefully thinking through each of her next moves. Head of the clan, I want to make you an offer you cannot refuse. I want to make a favorable deal with you, Beatrice exclaimed. You know I was the one who helped when the supplies burned. And that's not all. I believe that the tuberosum plant has not reached its full potential. If it is studied more thoroughly, there are a great many useful properties to be found in it. The head of the clan? Why does she call me that? It sounds rather strange, after all. The Duke thought to himself. Let's talk to you about it tomorrow. For now, you go back to your bed. It has been reported to me that you have been very ill for several days in a row. You shouldn't be walking around here, said the Duke to his daughter. The next day, when Beatrice entered the Duke's study, she saw a table set. The Duke decided to please his daughter with all kinds of sweets. He really wanted to pamper her. I see the madam is interested in the sweets standing here. The gentleman has prepared all of these just for you. These treats are from a famous chef. Each dessert has its own uniqueness, said the butler named Peges to the girl. But I didn't come here to eat sweets. I want to talk, exclaimed Beatrice. The Duke looked at her again with his cold gaze. In order not to disappoint her father, Beatrice had to taste all the sweets on the table. Thank you for treating me to such delicious desserts. However, I came here to settle a matter, said Beatrice after the sweets were finished. The girl had never eaten so many sweets before. And who taught her to talk like that? She talks like a grown girl, not an 8-year-old child, thought the Duke as he watched his daughter's behavior. I have been gathering information about the northern lands, and it has become apparent that the flow of people into these territories has greatly diminished, Beatrice exclaimed. And how did you know this? Clarified the Duke. The girl did not tell him that for several days in a row she turned into a squirrel and eavesdropped on the conversations of the townspeople. She gathered all the local gossip and rumors. The mountains surrounding the Aslan lands were an impenetrable defense, but they interfered with land ownership. So food had to be procured from outside. This was the first and most important problem of the Aslan lands. Beatrice knew from her past life that even after the war ended, the duchy's affairs would not improve. Soon the prices of food crop seeds would skyrocket. Beatrice remembered having to subsist on bread alone for long periods of time. Beatrice knew that soon the lands of Aslan would suffer from infertility. There would be a terrible famine in the city. But luckily, she had found a solution to the problem. If she succeeded, she would be able to save many lives. I have found a way that will solve the duchy's food problem, Beatrice announced. Don't bother. It's not a problem anymore. We already made an agreement with the Sadis kingdom the other day. Their lands are known for their wheat fields, so there won't be any problems with grain, replied the Duke to the girl. But this is only a temporary solution to the problem, and I offer you something better, Beatrice exclaimed and pulled the sheet off. Underneath the sheet was a small pot with a flowering plant. It's a tuberosum. I grew it myself. It's usually thought of as a weed by the roadside, but it's actually very useful. I know how to prepare it in a way that neutralizes its poison. Beatrice held out a pot of tuberosum to her father. But it's rather unpalatable. Even the most patient soldiers eventually refuse to eat it, mumbled Pegs. There's no need to worry about that. I've also solved that problem as well. I have created several recipes that help neutralize the unpleasant taste of the plant. For starters, try this soup. I'm sure you'll like it. Beatrice placed a bowl of soup on the table. Besides the soup, I've also made a few dishes based on tuberosum. I've noticed that it's great for baking, and it can also be used to make salads. It combines a wonderful smell and taste. It is also available to absolutely everyone. Head of the clan, these recipes are my part of the deal, said Beatrice to her father. Again, she started talking about some kind of deal? What does she want from me? Does she really want to get new toys? Or is she interested in a personal mansion? Or maybe she wanted something unique. Either way, I'll get it for her. The Duke thought to himself. In return, I want to stay in your house until I come of age, said Beatrice to the Duke. You mean you want to live here for another 10 years? Clarified the Duke. I don't demand that I continue to live in that luxurious room. To be honest, a small room in the attic or basement will even suffice for me. I promise you won't notice my presence here, replied Beatrice. I really beg you, don't send me back to the capital. I want to stay to live in your house. No, that will not happen, the Duke said in an icy tone. Beatrice involuntarily flinched. She had expected anything but rejection. Beatrice was willing to agree to any terms. She really didn't want to go back to her aunt. She had no future there. Instant rejection. Isn't what I offered not enough? Beatrice thought fearfully. But I can help the North. I'll be sure to come up with something better next time. And if you want, I'll pay you for my lodging. Please, Beatrice exclaimed. The girl felt tears come to her eyes. One does not pay for one's lodging in one's own house. Go to your room, said the Duke, and turned away from his daughter. What a thing to do! Such a wonderful deal has fallen through, and what have I done wrong? Screamed Beatrice, drumming her fists on the soft mattress. Young mistress, would you like us to sing a lullaby for you? We can also bring you warm milk and sweet cookies, the maid said in a soft voice. Thank you very much. You are very kind to me, mumbled Beatrice. What has happened to Ponytail? What is she so very upset about? Carlitas entered the room. Young master, when we entered your sister's room, she was already upset. She won't tell us what happened. The maids reported back. What happened? Just tell me who is hurting you. I'll deal with him in no time. Carlitas sat down next to his sister and stroked her head. Look, stop rubbing my hair. The maids just recently brushed it out for me. You're going to ruin all my hair, grumbled Beatrice. The maids brought warm milk and a stuffed bunny to the girl's room. They really wanted to cheer her up. I never thought they would continue to take care of me, even after the Duke arrived. At first, I only wanted to stay here for safety reasons, but now I don't want to leave the people who love me. Beatrice thought to herself. If it were only my will, I would live forever surrounded by these people. I absolutely have to arrange a second deal. I need to come up with something that the Duke won't be able to refuse. By the way, why did he say there was no charge for living in his house? What did he mean by that? What did his words mean? The young mistress has fallen asleep. Don't worry, she goes to bed early and gets a good night's sleep, told Joanna to the Duke. That's good. Looks like we'll have to watch every little thing. The girl is weak. I'm not sure she can withstand the serious northern cold. I don't want to watch her suffer, replied the Duke. A few years ago, unable to survive the great frosts of the north, Beatrice's mother had passed away. The Duke didn't want to lose anyone else. I wanted to bring her back to the capital because the climate there is much milder, however. She doesn't want to go back there. She is most likely very lonely there. She's trying her best to stay here. Sir, you may not like to hear this, but only in the capital will the young lady be safe. You yourself realize it is the best option for her, Count Zaloth exclaimed. There she will be cared for by her loving Aunt Furina. The girl will be much worse off in the north. I understand all of that perfectly well, but after all, Beatrice missed her home so much that as an 8-year-old child she decided to run away, mumbled the Duke. Damn, she's sure to ruin my plans if she stays here. She needs to get out of here by any means necessary. Thought to himself, Count Zaloth thought to himself. But what makes you think the girl will necessarily die here? I have a niece her age, and she can handle the cold weather just fine. You shouldn't think that your daughter isn't noted for her resilience, Butler Pegas remarked. I will need to think it over again. I don't want my babe to die here. I sent her to the capital on purpose to keep her healthy, but if I send her back, won't she come back again? Why don't I let her stay here? The Duke thought. Your daughter is quite a bright child. Sometimes I feel as if I am conversing with an adult. Her mental capacity is astounding, exclaimed the butler. I, too, am amazed every time I interact with her. I wonder why the Viscountess never reported any of this to me. I told her to report every little thing to me. Or did she just not take my words seriously? Grumbled the Duke. I don't think the Viscountess ignored your words on purpose. It's just that your daughter is still young. It's quite normal for her age to be a genius. And it seems to me that she was prompted by someone to run away, Count Zaloth said. And I think that those who left the little girl unattended should be punished. The road to the north is extremely dangerous. Something could have happened to her on the way here, said the butler. The Duke ordered the butler to reinforce the guards at the capital manor. By the way, I've sent people to investigate and find out the exact reason for the young lady's escape. If she was really put up to it by someone, we will definitely find out. You're right. The capital isn't safe yet, since a little girl can escape from there unhindered. We need to find those responsible for what happened, said the Duke. When Beatrice opened her eyes, she saw that her room was littered with baskets of flowers. There was a pleasant, sweetish aroma in the room. In the middle of the room stood a large, soft toy in the form of a squirrel, holding a large golden acorn in its paws. Beatrice walked over to the squirrel and nuzzled into its soft belly. Wait, if I understand correctly, this acorn is made of real gold. I'll be able to sell it and build my business, Beatrice thought to herself. The maid reported back to the girl that this was the Duke's way of thanking her for the recipes she had given him. He is not as cold as he seems at first glance after all. He appreciated my efforts after all, rejoiced Beatrice. Here you go, head of the clan. I wrote you a letter of thanks for your gift. Beatrice held out a small envelope to her father. Judging from the thank you card in the envelope, she liked the gifts. But that is nothing compared to the joy my child has shown me, and that this little girl was able to write her own with her little pen, thought the Duke. In addition to the thank you card, the envelope contained a few more recipes. I was thinking, if you like my recipes, let me stay here for at least a year, Beatrice asked. The Duke again answered her with a refusal. He is the most impregnable wall. I find it extremely difficult to get through to him. He thought wistfully of Beatrice. If you want, I'll build you a similar castle in the capital for you. Of course, the landscape is a bit different there, but we'll try to make it as similar as possible, suggested the Duke. No, absolutely not. I can't go back to a place where people who hate me live. I only ran away from them to survive. Beatrice thought fearfully. Master, let me stay here. I promise that I will bring you as much help as I can. Yes, I won't be able to take part in battles, but I'm still able to help. Beatrice still hoped that she would melt the Duke's cold heart with her words. I have my next meeting soon, so let's end it there. Go to your room, get some rest, said the Duke to his daughter. Over the next few days, the Duke literally flooded his daughter with gifts. But the girl didn't need anything from him. She just wanted to stay in his house. Beatrice loaded all the gifts into one large cart and rolled it into the Duke's study. I want to return your gifts to you. I am grateful for your attention, but I don't need them. And I want something else. I've already told you several times that I want to stay in your house. What if the winter is warm and everything is fine? Let me live here for just a little while. The girl folded her arms pleadingly. Let's make a deal with you like this. You'll stay here until winter. Once the frost hits, you will return to the capital, said the Duke. Beatrice was so pleased by the Duke's words that she involuntarily fluffed her squirrel tail. Now take all the presents and go to your room. I gave you these gifts to me for nothing. I want you to use them, the Duke said in a stern voice. The king and queen of the kingdom of Astrum decided to go back to the capital to their palace. Look at these people cheerfully greeting you. It's all thanks to the victories under your leadership. It's only natural for the common people to applaud their hero, said the queen to her consort. You are right, it couldn't be otherwise, replied King Artenbuck's wren Astrum. Did not the Golden Lion conquer all enemies? Truly, he is a great general. This is Duke Aslan's victory. Suddenly, the common people shouted, Your Majesty, don't pay attention to these people. They are fools who don't know what they are saying. In a soothing voice, the queen said, By the way, I have a plan. It is sure to please you. So don't worry in vain, my king. However, you have to be a master of your craft to do all the work perfectly. Have you memorized everything I told you, Ritter? Asked the queen, turning to her son. Of course, Mother. You don't have to worry about that. I want to assure you that we have everything ready, replied Ritter. Count Jewett, I would recommend you not to come here for some time, said Count Zaloth. Don't worry. I came here secretly. By the way, no one ever found out that my daughter set that military warehouse on fire. I want to assure you that she died after carrying out the order. Her body has still not been found, Count Jewett narrated. I don't understand why you are telling me this. Do you want to hear words of sympathy from me? Asked Count Zaloth. That you do, God forbid. I would like to receive from you the payment you promised. The daughter has been taking care of her younger sisters, so just give the means to support them so that the eldest daughter in the afterlife will feel at ease, said Count Jewett. All right. Since I promised to pay you, you will receive payment for your labor. Your reward will be even more generous than previously agreed upon. Come over so that I can give you your reward. Count Zaloth opened the desk drawer, letting his dagger be taken out of it. Give my regards to your daughter for me, said Zaloth, and stuck the dagger into Count Jewett's stomach. A butler entered the Count's study and announced that he had guests from the capital. Beatrice decided to walk through the garden in the guise of a squirrel. She liked to jump on the tops of the trees. Suddenly, next to Beatrice, the Duke opened the sashes of the window. The girl remembered that this was where his office was. Beatrice jumped on the ledge and watched her father. He was scrutinizing some documents. So blessed with happiness, mumbled the Duke, reading another document. Your Grace, whenever you speak your daughter's name, I hear love. You, of all people, deserve it, said Piguez, standing next to the Duke. Sometimes I regret that we didn't give our daughter's name by looking into her eyes. She learned her name from a letter. Lowering his head low, the Duke muttered, I can't believe my father himself came up with my name for me. Still, all these years he's been thinking of me. He cares about me. Beatrice thought back to her room. Beatrice prepared various cookies and muffins for her father. She also made his favorite tea. Putting it all on a tray, the girl hurried to her father's study. Suddenly, in the hallway, Beatrice ran into her Aunt Farina. The tray of dishes fell out of the girl's hands. She trembled with her whole body. You're just as much of a stretch as you've always been. Nothing new. And who did you become such a klutz? It's been so long since we've seen you, and you didn't even say hello. Where are your manners? Farina asked her niece. Do you know how surprised I was by your running away? Don't ever make me worry like that again. Try to be a good girl from now on. For years, in the guise of caring, I was constantly cursed and beaten. As a child, I believed that this was how my family showed love. It took me a long time to realize my aunt's true intentions. Beatrice thought to herself. Farina took Beatrice's cheek and rubbed it painfully. That's it. I've had enough. Things will be different now, Beatrice exclaimed and pushed her aunt's hand away from her. Stop pinching me all the time! You know I don't like it! Screamed Beatrice. The maids passing by whispered excitedly. Oh, don't mind her. She's so young that even a light touch seems painful to her, Farina exclaimed. She didn't want the maids to tell the Duke what had happened. Hearing the noise, the Duke hurriedly looked out of the study. My goodness! Absolutely nothing has changed about him. He's still the same handsome man of the Empire, though no, he's gotten even more handsome, Farina thought to herself. Farina bowed before the Duke in a welcoming bow. The Duke walked past her, ignoring the greeting. I guess the tray was too heavy, so you dropped it, asked the Duke to his daughter. The girl confessed to him that she wanted to treat him to all sorts of delicious sweets. She had made them with her own hands. Beatrice sat on the floor, barely holding back her tears. She didn't want to believe that all the horror of the previous years had come back into her life. The maids ran to Beatrice and began to clean up the cookies and broken dishes from the floor. You have extremely patient maids, and if you send them to the capital, they will be treated well, said Farina. Viscountess, stop talking nonsense, said the Duke in an angry tone. Did I get that right? My aunt doesn't like my father, noted Beatrice to herself. Go back to your room, ordered the Duke to his daughter. He did not want the girl to see his quarrel with the Viscountess. The Duke motioned for Farina to go to his study to continue the conversation. Viscountess, can you finally explain yourself? How dare you send my daughter alone to the northern lands? And I don't even know what to say to you about it. What your daughter did was extremely childish. She ran away from home without warning anyone, Farina replied. Childish? Do you even hear yourself? Now you're shifting responsibility for what happened to an 8-year-old child. How on earth did you raise her in the capital? I guess I'm beginning to guess why she ran away. The Duke said thoughtfully. Somehow, it seems to me that you and I have had some sort of misunderstanding. I have written you regular letters telling you about your daughter's upbringing. Farina objected. And as soon as I learned of her escape, I immediately used the royal line of communication to alert you of it. As her aunt, I did everything in my power. Yes, I have read your letters, but unfortunately there is not a word in them about the extent to which my daughter is talented. The Duke was indignant. And where did that little brat get any talent from? Farina wondered to herself. Also, what makes you think you can negotiate my daughter's marriage without even asking me about it? Asked the Duke. He guessed that the royal family was behind all of this. Of course, the most powerful family in the empire was the royal family. Following it was the Aslan family. The Duke guessed that the royal family had some kind of plan that could be realized by marrying Beatrice. Since you have decided to be willful, you will be punished severely, said Duke Aslan to the Viscountess. If only my sister were alive, you would never have done this to me. Why would you do this to me? Didn't my elder sister, didn't she ask you to take care of me? Farina exclaimed. Don't even dream of escaping punishment. My spouse's request was only valid until my daughter was on the streets. And if it weren't for my wife's will, you wouldn't even be standing here, replied the Duke. And now you may go. A guest room has been prepared for you. It is wrong of him to do this to me. Soon I will fulfill all my desires. I'll be a full-fledged mistress in this house. I'll even have my own spacious room. Entering the guest room, Farina took out a vial of purple liquid from her bag. I should only do as I've been ordered, and then I'll have everything I want. It's time to drink this tincture already. The next day, Beatrice received a letter from her father. She put all her letters in the golden acorn of a large, soft squirrel. My dear niece, how glad I am to see you again, exclaimed Farina, entering the girl's room. Auntie, are you still here? Surprised Beatrice. Why does that surprise you so much? By the way, won't you show your aunt what you have in your hand? I don't know why she wants my father's letters, but it's my treasure, and I'm not giving it to anyone. Beatrice clutched the golden acorn tightly to her. Farina kicked all the maids out of the room. She announced that she wanted a private chat with her niece. And what did you want to tell me? Asked Beatrice as soon as the door slammed behind the maids. Your tone and attitude towards me has become a little too flippant. It feels as if you haven't had any education. You see what happens when I stop watching you. I've been thinking about a custom of the northern lands. People here think that a name is extremely important to a person. It can be used to change one's destiny. So, unwanted children like you are not given names. I literally had to talk your father into giving you a name. I had to remind him of your dead mother. But that's not true. That's not what I heard my father say in his study. He had been thinking about my name for a long time. Why is my aunt lying to me again? Beatrice thought to herself. I think you have finally realized that no one else wants you but me. Therefore, you should behave more modestly with me. I hope that from now on, you will be as quiet and obedient child as you are now, said Farina, and left the girl's room. Watching my aunt's behavior, I only now began to realize that all these long years she had only deceived me. There wasn't a word of truth in her speeches. Beatrice thought wistfully. In a past life, her words that my father hated me were deeply rooted in my soul. Now, however, I doubt that it is true. Unfortunately, at the moment, I can't take revenge on her. I have no money and no place of my own. For now, I should get my father to let me stay in his castle. Next, I will wait until I come of age and make all my dreams come true. I will earn money and go traveling. Now I must study tuberosum thoroughly and find its use not only in cooking, but in medicine too. Books from my father's library will help me in this. Beatrice sat up all night studying the books. She found a lot of useful information not only about tuberosum, but about Aslan County in general. In the morning, she handed the maid the scribbled sheets of paper. She wanted the collected information to be seen by the Duke. "You mean to say that all of this information was found by my daughter and written out on her own?" clarified the Duke to the maid. The girl answered him that the young lady had sat at the books all night. "Even at a glance, you can see what a tremendous amount of work she has done. According to what Beatrice has written, a great catastrophe is about to occur that cannot be prevented by human powers," thought the Duke. The Duke ordered Pegasus to gather everyone in the meeting room. "Is everything written here true?" asked the Duke to his daughter. "Yes, and it is not an expectation, but a true prediction. There is a change of climate ahead of us," exclaimed Beatrice. She was sure of her words, for she had seen it all with her own eyes before she was resurrected. "I will prove it to you now, since you don't believe me. Please note, this phenomenon has been repeated periodically. Even historical records have been preserved. From all this, we're in for a little ice age. These history books say that something like this happened in the 20th year, in the 254th year, and in the 486th year. Every time the blue star appeared, there was a great famine. I am sure that a new period is about to begin. When the blue stars appear in the sky, there will be a terrible drought, leading to food shortages, and the winters will become cold. All these climate changes will lead to a great famine." "And how can we prepare for such a catastrophe?" Lord Hartwin asked. "The famine will end in exactly 3 years, but that's not the whole disaster. More unprecedented cold will still come, so we need to prepare for that as well. The very first thing we must do is to prepare a strategic food stockpile," Beatrice exclaimed. "And most likely that strategic stockpile will be tuberosum," Pegasus clarified. "Yes, that is correct. We are able to grow the tubers ourselves, so there is no point in buying and bringing supplies from other kingdoms as before. The next thing we should prepare is free canteens." Beatrice continued to speak. "You're suggesting to give out food for free?" Count Zaloth was surprised. "Your concern for our people is certainly touching, but such sympathy will lead to the commoners simply becoming lazy. Our reality is far from ideal." "Count Zaloth, are you worried about getting nothing for giving out free food?" Beatrice clarified. The Count nodded affirmatively. "You don't have to worry about that. I've thought it all out. The free canteens won't give out food for nothing. I'll start from afar. Everyone on our estate already knows the benefits of tuberosum and recipes made from it, but the peasants who are interested are in the minority. Many people simply don't know what can be made from this plant. They still think it is poisonous. Free canteens will help us spread the word about tuberosum. And when the common people realize that tuberosum is completely safe and quite tasty, then we will start selling it at an affordable price." After the meeting, Beatrice stepped out into the garden to enjoy the frosty winter air. Cutting past, Carlitis picked up the girl and sat her down beside him. "I suggest you go somewhere with me," said Carlitis, and let his horse gallop away. Carlitis brought his sister to the Blue Lake. "How beautiful it is here, after all. I used to think there were only rocky mountains in the north, but here it is so beautiful. This lake is much more beautiful than the pictures in the books." Beatrice exclaimed delightedly. "It was so sluggish all day, but in the sunshine it bloomed like a little flower," thought Carlitis as he watched his sister. "Are you glad we came here on my horse?" asked Carlitis to his sister. "I'm glad we came here, but I won't ride my horse again. It was the first time I rode it, and it's really scary," Beatrice admitted. "Wait, you mean you don't know how to ride a horse? But you're already 8 years old, aren't you? At your age, it's normal to know how to ride a horse, Carlitas said in a surprised voice. Yes, I can't ride a horse, but I can pick fruit and climb trees, replied Beatrice. She is sweet, but she reminds me of a commoner, Carlitas thought to himself. Tail, how are you going to survive in this harsh world? There is still much you have to learn, said Carlitas to the girl. Carlitas took out a bow and arrow and offered Beatrice to teach her how to hunt. Suddenly, a huge white snake crawled out from behind the bushes. Beatrice immediately remembered how in her previous life she had been bitten on the neck by Ritter. The girl squirmed, waiting for the bite. The whistle of a sword was heard. When Beatrice opened her eyes, she saw that the snake had been decapitated. I dealt with it so quickly, it's even boring, grumbled Carlitas. Tail, are you okay? You're not splattered with blood? Carlitas inquired of his sister. Brother, I'm fine, don't worry. Are you okay yourself? Did that scary snake have time to bite you? Did you hurt yourself? Beatrice asked. Are you really worried about me? I'm quite an experienced hunter. What's going to happen to me? Such beasts are no problem for me. With a smile, Carlitas replied, Thank you very much for showing me such concern, but rest assured that I can handle many problems. Do not be afraid of anything. When I am by your side, I will destroy anything that threatens you. I will always protect you. Since the Aslan lands were often attacked by enemies, the descendants of the clan began fighting from a young age. When other children played with wooden weapons, the Aslan descendants went to the battlefield with real swords. Such a life suited Carlitas. His enemies trembled with fear at the sight of him. His servants feared him. Carlitas was sure that strong men were always treated this way, feared or revered. No exceptions. But everything changed with Beatrice's appearance. Usually people were frightened at the sight of Carlitas, but Beatrice was not a timid person. She was cheerful, smiling, and very sweet. It was extremely hard to resist her charm. After returning his sister back to the garden, Carlitas went about his business. Returning to the castle, Beatrice ran into her aunt. Goodness, who's that here in front of me? Why, it's my favorite niece. I didn't expect to meet you here, Farina exclaimed. By the way, there's someone I've been wanting you to meet for a long time. Guys, let's meet our escaped rat. Farina beckoned the 3 black dogs over to her. Growling quietly, the black dogs began to approach Beatrice. Fear gripped the girl. She wanted to run away, but her body wouldn't obey her. Yes, that's right. Stand and shiver. You have behaved too insolently towards me. This will be your punishment. We need to get those dogs to sniff her out. They'll hunt her down next time if she decides to run away. Farina thought to herself. Out of nowhere, a guy with a black blindfold appeared in front of Beatrice. He covered her with his body. Seeing the guy, the dogs whined fearfully. Farina ordered them to attack the guy, but the dogs refused to listen to her. I see the little lady is afraid of big dogs, grinning the lad asked. It was you, lad, that I saw in the woods, mumbled Beatrice. Get away from her! Shouted Carlitas, covering his sister with his body. It seemed to the girl that the 2 men knew each other. Carl, I told you to escort your guest to the parlor, said the Duke, who approached. I am not a guide for this man, that's first of all. And secondly, he came into our home and went straight to tails. I don't like that. Carlitas was indignant. Is that true? In an angry tone, the Duke clarified to the guy with the black eye patch. It's some kind of misunderstanding. I just saw that the girl was in trouble, so I came to help her. From a distance, I saw that woman unleashing her dogs on the young lady. Disarmed, said the lad, raising his hands in the air. Viscountess, is it true? The Duke now turned his angry gaze on Farina. The woman began to mumble words of justification. The Duke ordered the guards to escort the Viscountess out of the castle. If it were my wife's will, I would never entrust my child to such a creature. It will be necessary to observe the life of the capital. My daughter must have been quite frightened when she saw the dogs. The Duke thought to himself. Prince, quickly take 10 steps back. Don't come within a couple of meters of tails, exclaimed Carlitas. There's a prince standing in front of me, but there are only 2 princes in our kingdom, Ritter and his half-elder brother. So this guy is the first prince, the one Ritter hates so much. Beatrice thought to herself, I didn't think I wouldn't be welcome in the north. I imagined our meeting with the Duke a little differently, noted the prince to himself. A few days ago, the king had decided to send the first prince to Duke Aslan. He asked the prince to express his gratitude to the Duke for his military exploits. Going to the Duke empty-handed to congratulate him on his victory seems a bit strange. Considering the outcome of this war, a huge amount of gold and silver was spent on lavish delegations. Thought to himself, the first prince thought to himself, most likely the king is doing this to humiliate me, the prince guessed. You must stay in the north until the Duke thanks you, said the king to his son. He wanted to banish him from the capital, so he came up with such a devious plan. The first prince guessed that his father hated him and tried with all his might to get rid of him. I didn't want to come here at first, but I think it's even better that it turned out this way. I didn't expect to meet her up north. They're in the capital. Still, it's great that I'll be able to talk to her now. The first prince thought to himself. Beatrice couldn't sleep for a long time. The stress of the day was making itself felt. Suddenly the girl heard someone's voice. It came from the terrace. Going out on the terrace, Beatrice saw a dark cloud that hovered in front of her window. Artel's birth had not been blessed. The king was shocked that such an ungenerous creature had come into his lineage. Artel was born an animorph dragon. It is worth noting that even in unions between two animorphs, dragons were rarely born. Artel's father was a serpent and his mother was a dragon. The king really wanted only serpents to be born into his family, but that is not what happened. The mother hated Artel because he was born a dragon. Because of her son, the king's love for her faded. The mother especially hated Artel's eyes. They were the same color as the king's. The mother made Artel wear a black eye patch. To hide from his hating parents, Artel turned into a dragon every night and circled the city. One day, flying over the city, Artel saw a little girl looking out of an open window. He was afraid that the girl would get sick, so he decided to fly closer to her. He wanted to force her back into the room with his wings. Seeing the dragon in front of him, the little red-haired girl screamed loudly. To avoid scaring the girl, Artel turned into a black cloud. His eyes shone like two bright stars. "Mr. Starfish!" the girl shouted joyfully. "Aren't you afraid of me?" asked Artel to the girl. "Why should I be afraid of you? Your eyes are as bright as those stars," replied the girl. "Look, your eyes are very bright too. Can I call you Star?" asked Artel. "But if you call me Stargazer and I call you Mr. Stargazer, we might get confused," objected the girl. "Then just call me Artel." Black Cloud reminded Beatrice of their long-ago meeting. "Traitor! Why did you come here?" screamed Beatrice. "Stargirl, what are you doing? It's me, Artel. Did you take offense at me for not coming for a long time? Forgive me for that," the Black Cloud exclaimed. "You don't have to lie to me. Do you think I've forgotten everything?" Beatrice slammed her fist on the Black Cloud. Years ago, back in a past life, Beatrice had once told Ritter that a black cloud had started visiting her lately. "So it was me. I was the one who came to visit you. This black cloud is a magical disguise. If I wandered around the city in the form of a snake, people would quickly guess it was me," said Ritter that day. "I am your future spouse and only friend, so I want to see you as often as possible. To that end, I'm turning into a cloud and visiting you." "Ritter, stop hiding behind that cloud. Get out of here. No one called you here. And why do you keep pretending to be someone else instead of showing your true snake form?" grumbled Beatrice. "A snake? So she constantly thought I was Ritter?" surprised Artel. "If you came here to hear me apologize for that slap, I won't do it. Don't come to me again. You're annoying me," Beatrice exclaimed and hurried back to her room. "Wait a minute, Stargazer. I'm not who you think I am," said Artel, and dispelled the black cloud that enveloped him. Turning around, Beatrice saw a black dragon. She realized it wasn't Ritter. He couldn't take the form of a dragon. He was a serpent. Beatrice guessed that for years Ritter had been deceiving her. He had never come to her in the form of a black cloud. All his words had been lies designed to gain her trust. All these thoughts made Beatrice's heart ache. "You're really not Ritter?" Beatrice clarified. The girl remembered that not long ago she had read in a book that dragons were known for being able to communicate with humans, even in the form of a beast. No one else could do that. Then why did Ritter lie? He's very cunning. He doesn't do anything without a reason. He's obviously up to something. Beatrice thought to herself. "And what's the matter? Why are you suddenly in the north? I noticed you got a name," said the dragon. "Yes, you can imagine. Now I have my very, very real name. I really hope that you and I will continue to see each other," replied Beatrice. "I follow the prince all the time, and as long as he is here, I will be able to see you. Since I am his servant, I need to follow him. The only thing is, we won't be able to see you during the day. I will come to see you in the evening." The dragon promised the girl. "By the way, I heard that you saw His Highness the First Prince during the day. Is this the first time you've seen him? What do you think of him?" And what should I answer the dragon? Since he is the prince's servant, he cares about his reputation. It's probably best for him if I answer honestly. The girl thought to herself. Beatrice admitted to the dragon that the first prince was a fan of flirting. What? What makes you jump to that conclusion? Was he hitting on himself? The dragon exclaimed, surprised. "No, I wouldn't say he's allowed himself any liberties, but there is a certain mysteriousness to his behavior, and I want to admit that I find him a bit cute," replied Beatrice. Beatrice yawned and rubbed her eyes sleepily. "I'm keeping you up. I'm sorry. Go to bed. It's time for you to rest. Sweet dreams to you," said the dragon and soared into the sky. A few minutes later, her brother burst into Beatrice's room. He noticed that there was a foreign odor in her room. "Carlitis, you imagined it. No one was here. I'm alone," Beatrice said with a smile. The girl guessed that if her brother found out that a dragon had visited her, he would be in trouble. "Then go to bed. It's getting late. And remember, if that dark-haired guy, the first prince, comes up to you, just ignore him. You should generally ignore all guys who want to marry you," said Carlitis to his sister. Waking up in the morning, Beatrice noticed that all the servants were agitated about something. A little later, the girl learned that her family is preparing for the upcoming banquet in honor of the victory. The banquet will be held in the Duke's castle. One of the maids handed Beatrice an envelope. In it lay an invitation to a tea party. "I'm sure I've only invited ladies to this tea party." In a displeased tone, the first prince remarked, "Don't call my sister a lady." Carlitis resented. "What am I supposed to call her? By her first name? I would never have thought you so sensitive. Why are you so wary? You know I would never cross the line of what is permissible." Carlitis was reassured by the first prince. Carlitis knew that many girls liked the first prince. They thought he was handsome. He didn't want his sister to fall in love with the first prince either. Next to her, he saw a completely different spouse. "I treat Beatrice with all sincerity and wish I had a sister as nice as her," the first prince remarked. "Ponytail, remember what we talked to you about the previous evening? I asked you to ignore that guy. Try not to talk to him," grumbled Carlitis. "But I can't do that," exclaimed Beatrice. The girl knew that the first and second prince were in a rather complicated relationship. She wanted to take advantage of that. Beatrice wanted to take revenge on the second prince with the help of the first prince. "My sister is protecting the first prince? Is she already enchanted by him?" Carlitis thought in surprise. Because of the uninvited guest, the chance for a private tea party with the lady was lost. "Shall we finish with the introduction and get to know each other better?" asked the first prince. "Young lady, may I have the honor of kissing your hand?" The first prince walked over to Beatrice and got down on one knee in front of her. "Are you out of your mind? Why would you kiss her hand to get to know her better? How dare you flirt with my sister in front of me?" Carlitis was outraged and grabbed the first prince by the pecs. Artel explained to him that by doing so, he simply wanted to show respect. "Brother, I'm not offended at all, and I too would like to get to know the first prince better. I want to know his name," said Beatrice. "Go ahead, say your name, but nothing more." Carlitas stood behind his sister's back. Ladies, allow me to introduce myself more formally. My name is Artel Dux Astrum. I am 12 years old at the moment. The first prince dropped to one knee in front of Beatrice again. Beatrice noted to herself that the dragon and the first prince had the same name. The girl decided that it was most likely due to the fact that the name Artel was quite common. Duke, you called me back. Does this mean that all misunderstandings between us have been resolved? Clarified Farina. The Duke answered her to call her back to his house to check something. Farina was supposed to bring the Duke a medicine from the royal family. Yes, I did come here originally to bring you the medicine that the royal family gave me. Thanks to this medicine, my niece won't get sick during the winter. This medicine is very effective. Farina took out a small vial from her purse. This elixir was created by the powers of the second prince, who finally awakened his abilities. As you know, the precious wisdom serpent has the poison of punishment and the power of healing potions. And what does the royal family want in return? Asked the Duke. Farina pointed out to him that the royal family insisted on holding the engagement of the second prince and Beatrice that was cancelled earlier. Hearing the Viscountess's words, the Duke irritably slammed his fist on the table. But if you are against it, no one will insist. In a trembling voice, Farina said, And now I will leave you. I hope my niece has no trouble surviving this winter. Farina bowed low before the Duke. The man had been intimidating her lately. What happened? Why are you suddenly worried about your niece's health? Asked the Duke. Gee, Duke, that's a given. I've been trying to find the right medicine for my niece for years now. After all, she is the daughter of my favorite sister. I cannot act otherwise, replied the Viscountess. If you are worried about your niece's health, why didn't you immediately give the medicine as soon as you arrived in the duchy? Why all this manipulation? Why are you acting like this? Inquired the Duke. The Viscountess's behavior looked extremely suspicious in his eyes. It's all because of the royal family. They said to wait until night for the serpent constellation to shine. Only after that will the potion begin to take effect. That day is approaching, so I'm giving you the potion. Farina replied. But this medicine won't harm her body, right? Clarified the Duke. Her body? No, it won't, said Farina and left the Duke's office. And why does he wear a blindfold all the time? Beatrice thought while scrutinizing the first prince. This brat purposely wore an eye patch to get Tail's attention. Irritatedly thought Carlitas. He asked the first prince how much longer he intended to walk around with the blindfold on. I remember you didn't care much about it before. Artel grinned. Carlitas countered that he used to always take the blindfold off during battle. Now he walked around with it on all the time. I always take off my blindfold during battle to overwhelm my enemies with my gaze, explained Artel. Do his eyes frighten ordinary people? Is it possible to stop an enemy just by looking at him? Though he didn't take off his blindfold, and the dogs were still scared of him. Beatrice thought to herself. Suddenly the girl heard a familiar voice. She went to the railing of the stairs and looked at the first floor. It was so. Her aunt had arrived. What was she doing here? I mean, she was kicked out of the duchy. Is everyone here really that tired? As backward as the North is, I never would have thought it would be this backward. It's all because there is no mistress in this house. That's why I think I can take over my sister's duties, Farina exclaimed. Madam, I'm sorry, but I can't issue family documents to people who don't belong to the Aslan clan. We have strict family rules, replied the headmaid. You dare to cross me! Farina shouted. She swung to hit the maid, but Beatrice stopped her with her shout. Put your hand down at once now. Beatrice closed the maid with her. She dares to block my path now? Since when did she stop being afraid of me? Irritatedly thought Farina. Suddenly, Farina felt some kind of force restraining her body. That energy? I didn't notice that young Aslan and the first prince are standing behind me. But why are they on her side? Especially the first prince. His energy is so strong that not even a bandage hides it, Farina thought. Did you just want to hit my sister? Growled Carlitas angrily. Artel placed his hand on his shoulder soothingly. I don't think we should interfere. I think the young lady can handle herself, Artel remarked. Niece, have you already forgotten everything I taught you? Looking at the behavior of the Northerners, it seems they not only have abominable taste, but bad manners as well. You have become frivolous, said Farina to her niece. How am I supposed to react? You dared to raise your hand against a servant. Is that what nobles are supposed to do? Exclaimed Beatrice. She never dared to cross me before. What has happened to her now? Why such a change in her? Farina thought to herself. Beatrice knew that her aunt was obsessed with nobility and elegance. She reacted extremely violently when her noble manners were spoken of in an unflattering manner. You probably misunderstood me. I'm just teaching the locals far from fashion a lesson. The Duke hasn't held a banquet in a long time, so if the upcoming ball fails, his reputation will suffer greatly. Farina replied, Are you now implying that the northern lands have fallen behind the capital? Beatrice clarified. Isn't that the case? This ball will be attended not only by northerners, but also by noble families with an eye for fashion and art. But can you prepare a proper reception without my help? Farina asked her niece. I didn't say that, but I have already hired a very famous chef, famous for his tea and desserts. You shouldn't refuse my help. Without me, you won't be able to organize a high-level event that the people of the capital are used to. Farina knew that with the Duke's return to the palace, Count Zaloth's influence had diminished noticeably. And to regain the lost influence, the duchy must have as many people loyal to the royal family as possible. Don't worry, your help won't be needed. We have absolutely no need for the fads of the capital's life. I can start a new fashion here on my own, Beatrice exclaimed with defiance. You're going to run fashion in the north? What a great idea that is, said Farina and laughed out loud. Well then, good luck with your preparations. But know this, if you come running to me for help, I will gladly help you. I don't even know if you want to ruin the Duke's reputation on purpose, or if you're doing it by accident. Do you want me to kill her? Said Carlitas and drew his sword from its sheath. Beatrice rushed to stop her brother. Sure, Farina was quite a treacherous woman, but killing her still wasn't worth it. By the way, Joanna, are you all right? Beatrice asked the headmaid. Yes, I'm fine thanks to you. It is my pleasure. I am touched to the core. You are so sweet and beautiful. Why on earth do you have such a kind heart? Joanna exclaimed. Returning to her room, Beatrice took out from the bottom drawer of her dresser a piece of paper rolled up in a tube. I had prepared this in case there were any dissenters after the explanation, but unexpectedly it ended well and it didn't have to be used. But now it's time to use it, mumbled Beatrice to herself. Beatrice hid the written piece of paper in a golden acorn. Beatrice summoned all the maids of the manor. She led them over to large cardboard boxes. Inside the boxes were linen harnesses. I am about to show you how to make a beautiful flower from this harness. It doesn't take much time or effort. I'm sure you can do it, said Beatrice, and began to weave the flower. After a couple of minutes, Beatrice showed the maids the finished product. She planned to decorate the banquet hall with the woven flowers. Thank you for accepting my invitation again, young lady. It seems like you've been craningly busy lately, said the first prince. It's been quite busy decorating the banquet hall in the new style, Beatrice admitted. I have noticed that the servants love you and treat you with great respect, said Artel. I just like the people living in the north. It was different in the capital, noted Beatrice. Lady, can you tell me about your life in the capital? Artel asked. There's not much to tell. In the capital, the servants treated me without respect. There were times when the maids punished me. I was frightened and had no one to rely on, replied Beatrice. Ladies, if you will excuse me, would you mind if our tea party ends here? Asked the prince and rose from his seat. Yes, by the way. How about we speak to you less formally next time? This is not the first time we are seeing you. Last time we spoke to you in a more friendly tone. I think we should drop the formalities. The detective held out to the first prince the information he had gathered. After reading the report, Artel realized that the situation was even more complicated than he had previously thought. I would like to point out that the Duke has also taken notice of this. Aslan's informants were there as well, said the detective. Artel decided to give the Duke the information he had gathered. Did the first prince send this? Is it all true? Clarified the Duke. Yes, it's all true. By the way, I brought you a report from our spies. You should familiarize yourself with it. There are a lot of overlaps here with the documents sent by the prince. Pegas held out the scroll to the Duke. Why didn't I notice this? And why didn't the doctor's reports he sent me regularly say anything about her condition? The Duke whispered in surprise as he finished reading the spy's report. Listen carefully from now on. Bring everyone who contributed to this here. Don't leave anyone out. And take Viscountess Eurus into custody immediately, ordered the Duke. Carlitos entered his father's study with a firm step. Father, I bring with me the culprit of all that has happened, said Carlitos. The first prince pushed the stubborn Viscountess into the Duke's study. Viscountess, how good of you to be brought here. I was just on my way to see you. Are you ready to be rewarded for taking care of my daughter? The Duke asked in an angry tone. Beatrice wanted to ask her father if she could decorate the hall with wicker flowers, but as she approached his office, she heard her aunt's voice. She was pleading tearfully. Strange! Why is the aunt bound and kneeling? Beatrice thought as she looked into her father's study. Duke, why are you doing this to me? What will my sister think watching us from heaven? Farina asked. As soon as you open your mouth, it immediately becomes very noisy. Should I just kill you? Carlitos put his sword to the woman's neck. Carl will kill her a little later. Right now, I want to hear her answer my questions. The Duke said in a calm voice. All right, father, I'll obey you. I will see you a little later. Carlitos hid his sword in its scabbard. He and the first prince left the Duke's office. Well, Viscountess, now answer my first question. Where did the money I sent to the capital go? Asked the Duke. Did my father send me money after all? Then why did I live so poorly? I got nothing from that money. I had one dress that I wore for years on end. Beatrice thought in surprise. And what money are we talking about now? Said Beatrice, entering her father's study. It's not a good sight for a child, so I wanted to deal with it quietly, thought the Duke. Did I understand correctly you sent money to the capital? Were you really interested in me? Beatrice asked. Of course I was interested in you. You are my daughter. How could I leave you without my help and protection? Replied the Duke. But if my father was always interested in me, then why was my life so miserable? As I was dying, I realized that I was all alone in this world. However, I never resented my family. I didn't blame them for what happened. Beatrice thought wistfully. And I always thought you didn't come to see me because you didn't want to see me. Could you really not come to see me because you were so busy? And don't you really hate me? Beatrice asked. How could you even think such a thing? I have never hated you, not for a single moment. Protecting our country's borders, I thought of your safety every day. The Duke crouched down next to his daughter and gently touched her face. I regret trying to send you back without knowing what you were going through. My stupidity caused you so much pain. I'm ashamed of myself in front of you. You shouldn't be upset about it. I hold no grudge against you, Beatrice assured her father. I beg you to forgive me for what happened. The Duke put his arms around his daughter and held her tightly against him. My family actually loved me and I didn't know it, Beatrice thought and wept bitterly. My sweet niece, at last you have resolved all the little misunderstandings with your father. It looks very touching. I want to congratulate you, said Farina. Beatrice, do you see the position your aunt is in now? You, as the Duke's only daughter, must stand up for me. How can a person be so shameless? She was the reason I lived a lonely and painful life, and now she's asking me for help. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have died alone in my past life, remarked Beatrice to herself. I have received no favor from you. Why do you ask me for help? Exclaimed Beatrice. What is going on? Why has her attitude toward me changed? I remember that before, she used to reach out to me all the time, hoping to receive love. She always did what I told her to do. Farina thought in surprise. "What are you waiting for? Quickly take this woman to the dungeon," ordered the Duke to his guards. Farina shuddered fearfully. She knew that those who went into the dungeon never came out of it again. They died there. "Duke, this is unacceptable. You cannot send me to the dungeon. Yes, I admit I did wrong. I embezzled the money you gave me for child support. But are you not treating me too cruelly?" screamed Farina. "Pegas, will you please hand me the detective's countdown?" asked the Duke to his assistant. "Viscountess, this only records a few of the crimes you have committed. Of the main ones, you have wasted the funds I gave for my daughter, neglected her, and gotten away with the atrocities of servants. I also learned that you forbade my daughter from contacting me. One thing I don't understand is why all of a sudden you thought I wouldn't find out about anything. Why did you lie to me all the time? I am now certain that all the letters you sent me contained nothing but lies. Reading your letters, I was always glad that I was doing a good job of protecting my daughter. In reality, she was living in nightmarish conditions. So my letters just didn't reach my father? He didn't know I was writing to him? My aunt didn't want me to communicate with my father? Because of my aunt, I constantly thought my father hated me." Beatrice thought sadly. Suddenly, Beatrice fainted. Most likely, the girl fainted due to a lot of nervous tension. She experienced a lot of stress, so her body couldn't take it. "But don't worry, she will recover quickly," said the Duke to the doctor. "Strange, Carl and I have better health. Why is she so frail? Is she really different from us? Is the difference in our physical strength so great?" questioned the Duke. "Carl, see to your sister while I go to the dungeon for a while. I want when your sister opens her eyes, she will see a relative beside her. I don't want her to feel lonely anymore," said the Duke to his son. "Now quickly let me out. I have memorized all your faces, and when I return to the capital, I assure you that you will be executed," shouted Farina to the guard. Entering the dungeon, the Duke approached the guard and asked him if he could release the prisoner. "Duke, have you decided to let me go after all? Have you realized that my atrocities are not so terrible? Have you checked everything and realized that I've been slandered?" Farina exclaimed. The Duke ordered a guard to take the Viscountess to the torture chamber. "Viscountess, I want to hear the truth. I guess you will remain silent, so I need to find a way to open your mouth. I hope you realize that I will be overly emotional during the interrogation due to personal circumstances. You will have to answer for my daughter's suffering." Beatrice had always wondered what it was like to have a family. The girl had only read about warm family embraces in books. A big, strong, loving family was a pipe dream before her. When Beatrice opened her eyes, she saw her brother Carlitis beside her. "Ponytail, are you finally awake? How are you feeling?" asked Carlitis to his sister. Beatrice assured him that she felt fine. "Ponytail, why didn't you ever tell me that you were bullied in the capital?" "I know a lot of people are afraid of werewolves, so I thought it was only natural that I was treated that way," Beatrice admitted. "No, it's unnatural to bully a child. On top of that, you are the daughter of a duke. How dare they even dare to treat you like that? If anyone does this to you in the future, be sure to tell me about it," asked Carlitis to his sister. "You and I are a family, and in a family it's customary to take care of each other and protect each other. Carl, go to the capital mansion and do whatever you see fit there," said the Duke to his son. "Whatever I see fit? You mean I can beat up all the people who bullied Ponytail? I can even burn down the mansion?" Carlitis clarified. "I told you it's up to your discretion," said the Duke. "Don't change your mind later, father. I really will, won't I?" warned Carlitis. "No matter how much I thought about it, the medicine my aunt gave me was still suspicious. And it's not entirely clear to me what Ritter's ability is. One thing I do know is that there is poison in his fangs." Beatrice thought to herself. Suddenly, the girl saw a black dragon beside her. She screamed with joy. For some reason unknown to her, she was happy to see the dragon. "My dad said that all werewolves have amazing abilities. What ability do you have?" Beatrice asked the dragon. Artel knew that only relatives of werewolves could know about innate abilities. No outsider needed to know about it. But it was Beatrice standing in front of Artel. He couldn't refuse her. I will tell you about my ability, but you will have to keep it a secret. My ability has to do with astronomy. I can summon rain, thunder, and fog. I can also create small, dark clouds around me," answered the girl Artel. "Do you think the second prince has the ability to heal? Recently, my aunt brought a medicine. She said that this medicine would help me. My aunt told me that this medicine was obtained by using Ritter's poison," narrated Beatrice. "Can snakes have non-poisonous powers or healing? Don't you find all this strange? As far as I know, the second prince doesn't have healing abilities. I've never heard of him having such a power awakened in him," said the dragon to the girl. "You're probably right. You have no idea how much I wish I had some unique ability." With a heavy sigh, Beatrice admitted. Beatrice decided to visit her aunt in the dungeon. She wanted to ask Furina some questions. Beatrice asked her father for her father to escort her to the dungeon. "Why did you only come to see me now? Why didn't you come before?" In an angry tone, Furina asked her niece. It was extremely hard for her to contain her anger and irritation. "How dare you behave like that to my child? Watch your tone," demanded the Duke. "I'm sorry, your lordship. I don't know what came over me." Furina fell to her knees in front of the Duke. "Aunt, I was told that you brought me a medicine given to me by the royal family. Answer me, is it really a medicine, or is it poison?" Beatrice asked. Damn, have they guessed everything? But that can't be. I was being extremely careful. What am I going to do now? Farina thought fearfully. The Viscountess knew that the poison created by the unique abilities was special. It can stay in the victim's body for several years in a row, waiting for an order from its owner. The poison only works when its owner wishes it to. It cannot be detected in any way. "What are you talking about? Why would I bring you poison? How could you think that of me?" Farina exclaimed. "So, if this drug is safe, then you, Auntie, can drink it?" asked Beatrice. Farina involuntarily flinched. She's trying to hide her excitement, but she's not very good at it. Artel was right. The Viscountess knows it's not a medicinal remedy. Beatrice thought to herself. "Come on, don't be stubborn. Drink this medicine." Beatrice held out a vial of purple potion to her aunt. "If I drink this potion and immediately die, they will guess that the royal family is behind all this. I don't want to die, and I don't want to put the royal family at risk. Whose side is the right one to take?" Farina thought fearfully. "Yes, you're right. It was poison." Farina knocked the vial of poison out of her niece's hands. "Did I get it right now? You were trying to poison my child?" In an angry tone, the Duke clarified. "I'm sorry, I'm very sorry. I will accept any punishment from you," said Farina in a trembling voice. "Since you wanted to kill my daughter, I will take your life." The Duke drew his sword and pointed it towards Farina. "Dad, wait!" Beatrice grabbed tightly onto the Duke's cloak. "Little one, I'm sorry, but I won't change my mind. You shouldn't show mercy to people like this," said the Duke to his daughter. "But I'm not asking you not to punish her. We will simply take from her what she treasures more than life." Beatrice pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse. "Is there anything more valuable than life?" Farina asked her niece. "It has been proven that you embezzled money, forged documents, and tried to kill me. I believe you should pay for your crimes in monetary terms. You will make up for all the damages with money," said Beatrice. "What makes you think I value money more than my life? Take as much as you need. It seems the financial situation of the duchy is so bad that you have to take money from the Viscountess." With a smirk, Farina said, "If I understood correctly, you're the one who is currently the one in distress. Your money won't be enough to repay the compensation. Therefore, I'll have to take everything from you, including your house in the capital. Also, your title will be taken away from you," Beatrice replied. "But no one can take away my title," Farina exclaimed. "And no one will take it from you. If you can't make restitution, you'll have to give up your title," objected Beatrice. "But if my title is taken from me, then I will become an ordinary commoner. I have been an aristocrat from birth, and I want to die an aristocrat." In a frightened voice, Farina said, My dear niece, you can't do this to me. Think of your mother. She was my own sister. She was so worried about you before she died that she asked me to look after you. Farina knelt down in front of her niece. You see, you yourself say that my mother was your sister. Then why did you do this to me, your own blood? Why did you take the money that was meant for me? And why did you wear my mother's jewelry? Beatrice asked. Here, I have your personnel file in my hand. I found it a few years ago in your room. Also, there was the ring of the head of the family. Since a bit of your blood flows in me, I can become the head of the Surus family. Beatrice took out a ring from her pocket and put it on the index finger of her left hand. Stop! Stop right now! Screamed Farina. Now I have finally reclaimed what was rightfully mine. As of this moment, you are no longer Viscountess Surus. A life of no title and no property awaits you now. Beatrice summarized. Are you saying that Farina has been exposed? Clarified the queen. I heard that she was taken into custody and locked in a dungeon, narrated the royal spy. Fortunately, the poison is undetectable, and what a fool one would have to be to let herself get caught. Unfortunately, after what happened, the Duke will surely be suspicious of the royal family. The queen said thoughtfully. Spread the rumor that someone snuck into the castle and stole the royal family's poison. Remember, we gave nothing and no one anything. When Duke Aslan won the Great War, the people started praising him, not the royal family. We need to get rid of him. I've sent assassins to him a bunch of times, but they haven't even managed to wound him. However, I know that the Duke has one weak point, and that is his precious daughter. We need to get the poison into her body. Mother, I can help you, said Ritter. Son, I know I have you as a unique child, and I believe there will be opportunities ahead. You will definitely help us. The queen sat her son on her lap and gently stroked his head. The queen knew that her son was complex because his older brother Artel had more strength and more unique abilities. She wanted to help her son get rid of his worries, anxieties, and complexes. Your Highness, you have helped me a lot, so I want to reward you for that, said Beatrice to the first prince. You want to give me some kind of reward? Then stop calling me Your Highness. Just call me Brother Artel, asked the first prince. Get lost! You can't be her brother. Tails has only one brother, and that's me. If you keep acting like this, consider yourself dead, Carlitis shouted in an enraged voice. I don't see any problem with the young lady calling me Brother Artel. I think it sounds very cute. The first prince insisted. And let's, so that no one is offended, I will fulfill another of your every request, suggested Beatrice. You see, I have no problem calling you by your first name, but I don't want to call you my brother. In my eyes, you are a good friend. In addition, only Carlitis can be my brother. If the word brother makes you uncomfortable, then so be it. You can just call me by my first name, replied Artel to the girl and smiled cheerfully. Finally, the preparations for the banquet were over. The banquet hall was able to be decorated on time. Artel, what do you think of macrame? Will it appeal to the guests of the capital? Beatrice asked the first prince. To be honest, I'm very surprised. I never thought I would see such elegance in the north. Before, this place was always associated with strength and ignorance. After a bit of thought, the prince replied, Good! That's exactly what I was hoping for. The stronger the prejudice, the better people will appreciate my idea. I want to change the capital's guests' opinion of the northern lands. No one will be able to look down on us anymore, Beatrice exclaimed. At the banquet, walking around the hall, Beatrice overheard the conversations of the capital's guests. Absolutely everyone was surprised by the decoration of the banquet hall. Many guests liked the flowers tied from a linen harness. Thank you for coming such a long way to us. The long war has finally ended with our victory. It is my pleasure to raise my glass with you today to celebrate. Duke Aslan said in a loud voice, I owe this victory to my daughter. When we had problems with provisions, her discovery was able to save many soldiers' lives. Even at a young age, she is already looking for ways to help the villagers. She is a gifted child with many talents. Beatrice looked at her relatives with gratitude. She finally had a family in her life that truly loved her. Damn, I can't believe all my plans were ruined by some damn little girl. She's like an eyesore. I'll be sure to make her pay for what she did. Annoyed, Count Zaloth thought to himself. Spaz! Thank you! Making an effort on herself, exclaimed Beatrice. Good for you, see. Now you have no problem addressing me as you. Our training hasn't been in vain after all, said the first prince and clapped his hands. Hey, you reptile! How long can you come here? Why don't you finally get out of here? Exclaimed Carlitis. How I wish I could kick this bum out of my house, but I can't do that at the moment. I shall have to wait a little longer. On top of that, the first prince helped me with the investigation. I should show him some gratitude. The Duke thought to himself. Today, the duchy received a letter from the royal family. They regret that their poison was used in this incident. They claim the poison was stolen, so they are also victims. Pégez reported back. So, they are victims too? How interesting. And how is the case I asked you to look into progressing? Asked the Duke. It's all done. Now goods from neighboring kingdoms will not enter the capital. Virtually all other trade will go through the desert in northern Aslan. If we block that route, we will deal a big blow to the royal family, replied Pégez. I think that already the next royal ball will be a lot more deserted than usual. The royal balls will now lose their luster. But still, isn't it a bit excessive to block trade routes? Especially since the royal family has written that they are not involved in the attempted poisoning, and we have no proof to doubt that, said Baron Datern. That's right. The situation is not completely clear at the moment. That is why I have not taken more serious action. But if there is clear evidence of the royal family's involvement in this matter, then I will not stand by, replied the Duke. Damn it, it's all the fault of that little idiot! How dare they give me probation? Those dumbasses don't even know what the next head of the family looks like, Count Zealot shouted in an irritated voice. The future head of the family has hair that isn't blonde, but brown. The eyes are not golden, but light brown. You won't find a single Aslan family trait in his face, but the blood in his veins flows the truest. How dare they deny me the Aslan bloodline? This shame I will never forgive them. The butler entered the room and whispered in Duke Zaloth's ear that he had visitors. He also told him that a letter had arrived from the royal family. It was time to begin the lion hunt. Beatrice read in one of the books that there is a magic stone that can revive even the most infertile soil. The girl was very eager to find this artifact. Beatrice remembered that before her rebirth, Ritter had sold a similar artifact for a lot of money. I know that Ritter is about to find this artifact, but where? Beatrice thought to herself. A maid entered the girl's room and announced that the Duke was calling for her. He was expecting his daughter in the open garden. When Beatrice entered the garden, she saw that it was festively decorated. There were flags and ribbons hanging everywhere. There was a cake on a table in the middle of the garden. Do you like it? We prepared it for you, said the Duke to his daughter. For me? But it's not even my birthday today, Beatrice exclaimed in surprise. We can have parties like this every day. We don't have to wait for your birthday, said the Duke. Pigs, bring it out, ordered the Duke to Pegs. Pegs brought a small, golden-colored pony into the garden. This pony is yours now. He will ride you around the castle, said the Duke. How glad I am to finally have a pony. He even has a little jeweled horn on his forehead, exclaimed Beatrice joyfully. Sir, I apologize for distracting you from your family celebration, but you have a meeting soon. It is time to depart, said Duke Pegs. Daughter, business calls for me. I will go, and you stay and play as much as you want, said the Duke to his daughter. Beatrice walked over to her father and thanked him for the gift. Instead of just being happy and accepting what she already deserves, Beatrice shows respect like a vassal who received a reward. And it's all because I couldn't take care of her sooner. The Duke thought sadly. Child, you need not be so polite, and you don't need to speak so formally to me. Just be sincere and happy. That is the only thing I ask of you. From now on, I will always smile so brightly that you can see my gratitude, exclaimed Beatrice with a joyful smile. Sir, this is a list of the royal family members who will be coming to discuss the war fee, said Pegaz. But be that as it may, everyone knows that the royal treasury is empty. They'll definitely send us some boring, annoying old men. I'm sure of it, grumbled Carlitis. No, there are quite a few interesting names on the list this time, noted the Duke. And why is his name on the list? Why is there a second Prince Ritter visiting this time? Resented Carlitis. Well, he's volunteering to go into the lion's den himself. We'll see what happens. And I still remember him proposing to my daughter. Well, that's good for us, since it saves us from having to go to him. Crossing his arms over his chest, the Duke said, Pegaz, prepare to greet the guests. I must give a splendid reception to a distinguished man from the capital. Oh, I'm so worried about this. You see, my father has been giving me too many gifts lately, and I'll say it again. There are too many, complained Beatrice to the first prince. It's not even my birthday, and he keeps giving and giving. He recently gave me a riding pony. He's already thrown several picnics and banquets. I wish I could get him something too, but he already has everything. Yeah, the Duke would probably be happy even with a rock if it was presented by his daughter, and she doesn't even know it. Think to yourself, Artel. You know, it looks like there's something you could give your father. And besides, he's sure to like it, said the prince to the girl. And what is that? Asked Beatrice. Artel told his idea in the girl's ear. Still, the first prince is a real idiot. I trusted him, and he started messing with me. I ended up going back to the garden again with nothing. With a heavy sigh, Beatrice muttered. A black cloud appeared in front of Beatrice. Artel asked the girl what she was doing on the terrace at such a late hour. It was all because of your prince. I then went to him for advice, and he advised me all sorts of silly things. Can you imagine? He said it would please the Duke if I just called him Papa, Beatrice complained. What didn't you like about his advice? It sounds perfectly logical, Artel remarked. Except you don't have to justify it now. By the way, why did you come to see me at this late hour? Beatrice asked. I came to you to say goodbye, replied Artel. So suddenly? Are you going somewhere far away? Beatrice did not want to part with her friend. Artel assured her that he was not going away for long. As soon as he resolved all matters, he would be right back. By the way, I want to warn you that a very special guest is due to arrive in the north very soon. I think the first prince is being sent out of the duchy on purpose so that he won't be seen with him, said Artel. Stargirl, it has not been long since you and I met, and I'm sorry that we have to part. But it won't be for long, I promise you, so don't be upset. Artel, I'll be waiting for you, Beatrice promised. A few days passed after Artel's departure. Beatrice took his advice. She began to call the Duke Papa. The girl saw that the Duke liked it very much. It makes me want to see him happy every day. Before the frost comes, we must gather berries and make something delicious for Papa. Beatrice decided to herself. Walking alone? Asked the girl to the approaching Ritter. What are you doing here? Beatrice asked, surprised. Is that how they teach you in Aslan to greet people you haven't seen in a while? Well, it's in the spirit of the North. And what a joy it is, after all, that you have not forgotten me, replied Ritter. I knew she would not forget me. She can't take her eyes off me. She has developed an interest in me like everyone else. Ritter thought to himself. I kept wondering why she slapped me on the cheek the first time we met. And now I realize she did that weird thing to get my attention. Well, that's a good thing, because it's a lot easier to flirt with someone who likes you. I understand what you were thinking that day. Did you want me to remember you? If so, you didn't need to resort to manhandling. I would have remembered you anyway, said Ritter to the girl. Huh, you don't have a tooth. How cute that looks, said Beatrice and laughed lightheartedly. How dare you behave like that in the presence of royalty? Don't you think it's an insult to the royal family? The second prince was indignant. Still, it's funny that the snake lost its fang. Would you remind me how it happened? Through laughter, Beatrice asked. Enough. It's not as funny as you think it is. Anyway, it's time for me to leave. I've got some important business to attend to. Ritter turned his back to Beatrice and strode away. Damn it! How dare that little rat laugh at me? I must get revenge on her. Should I make the Duke kneel for not giving proper education to his children? Or would that be too humiliating? Ritter thought to himself. My mother told me that even the lions must bow to me when I arrive in the north. I must show who is master here and who holds the leash. A few days ago, the king and queen had announced to their son that they would have to send him to an ungenerous state because of an arrangement. These hordes of barbarians went around claiming he was a hero who had saved the country. They were asking for a bounty for it. They don't seem to realize the position they are in. I'm sick of them not sending tribute to the palace, shouted the king and slammed his fist on the throne. Your Majesty, please calm down. You know you shouldn't be nervous. Take care of yourself, please, asked the queen to her husband. Ritter, you can see for yourself that the situation is not good right now, so you must leave. Can you do that for your father's sake? You just have to go there and behave following your lineage, said the queen to her son. I understand you. I will go there, so don't worry, promised Ritter. Upon entering the Duke's office, Ritter immediately felt coldly treated. It was obvious that the Duke and his son had a hostile attitude. They did not fall at the feet of the second prince, but remained in their seats with their heads held high. Pleased to meet you, Duke Aslan, said the second prince. So, you are the second prince, Ritter. Did you decide to come here on your own? Asked the Duke and his son in one voice. He is too emotional right now. They shouldn't have sent the little prince here, thought Baron Avon. He could see that the second prince was frightened of the Duke. I am honored to meet the noble guardian of the North. I am Baron Avon, accompanying His Highness on this trip. The Baron introduced himself. I should behave carefully with these people. Otherwise, they will realize that the kingdom's financial situation is limping. At this point, we have absolutely no other options. If the Duke doesn't agree, the royal treasury will be empty in 2 years, thought the Baron. As you realize, His Royal Majesty is so committed to this matter that he sent his son here, exclaimed Baron Avon. Here would be at least some insight into the Duke's feelings. And why isn't he acting the way my mother said he would? Not only has he not bowed to me, but he is openly showing his malice. Thought to himself, the second prince thought to himself, I realized it's all because we didn't get along with his daughter the last time we met. That's why he feels dislike at the sight of me. Duke Aslan, there is no need to be so hard on me. What happened last time didn't hurt me in the slightest, so you don't have to worry, said Ritter to the Duke. I realize the lady acted impulsively because she wanted attention from me. I realized that a long time ago and forgave it. I don't want to dig up the lady's past that involves an attack on the royal family. We can all relax and talk in peace. Prince, you'd better shut your mouth. You deserve a slap for saying such things. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Carlitas asked in a displeased tone. I beg your pardon. What did you just say? Ritter asked. He hadn't expected such an attitude from the Duke's son. This was already crossing all acceptable boundaries. What you heard. Do you have a hearing problem at such a young age? If you dare to mention an engagement that won't happen, you are pathetic, replied Carlitas. So you mean to say that you are completely on your sister's side and see nothing wrong with her hitting royalty? Ritter clarified. Carl is right. It was your fault that my daughter hit you. You forcibly tried to marry her without her consent. You should be grateful to her for merely slapping you. You may leave now, said the Duke to the second prince. Got a little power and already lets you act so cocky? Ritter thought irritated. And I want to warn you! Don't you dare go near my sister! It won't end well for you! Said Carlitas to the second prince. Once Ritter was alone in his room, he let his feelings come out. He hated the Duke, his son, and Beatrice. That wench doesn't even know how to turn into a lion. If it weren't for the war fee and those idiotic provisions, I'd have them. The prince swept a vase of flowers off the table. Falling to the floor, the vase shattered into small shards. The day will come and no one will even remember those damn Aslans. I'll let those lions know who their true master is. They'll be on their knees begging me for forgiveness. Listen, do you know why the other prince came here? Beatrice asked her brother. Probably to ask us for a price cut on military spending. That damn snake sat and hid while the war was going on, and now he dares to come and beg for a lower fee. To be honest, I'm not worried about the financial status of these scumbags, replied Carlitis. Tail, remember, these snakes are not to be trusted. They are cunning, sneaky, and sneaky, and try to avoid not only snakes, but all other reptiles. Dragons are especially dangerous. Only lions can be trusted. The next day, Beatrice decided to go to the garden to enjoy the acorns. The girl chose a suitable branch and began to enjoy her favorite dessert. A short while later, Beatrice heard two voices. Lowering her eyes to the ground, Beatrice saw Count Zaloth and the second prince. I am honored to meet you in person, Your Highness, said Count Zaloth. Yes, normally we only communicate with you through letters. And this place is really quite secluded. You're right, we'll be able to communicate with you here, the second prince remarked. Did you manage to communicate with the Duke and his children after all? Count Zaloth asked the prince. Yes, they all turned out to be quite ignorant. The Duke's daughter even started laughing at me. All in all, nothing came out of this communication. What is the current state of our affairs? The prince inquired. So far, things are going well. That person Your Highness sent was able to find a target location. We are going to purchase the land in his name soon, replied the count. Good, then do everything without too much noise and witnesses, just like last time, asked the prince. Like last time? What was the last time? What situation are we talking about now? This isn't the first time they've cooperated? Beatrice thought in surprise. Well, it's only a matter of time before the stone falls right into my hands, said the prince thoughtfully. Well, I must go, or the lions will suspect something. Count, you may not see me off. You had better get out of here another way. So you say the stone will soon be in your hands? Why, that's just wonderful news, Beatrice muttered. The elven stone had an amazing ability. It could turn the hottest desert into a blooming garden. At the moment, there were only a few such stones left on Earth. Do you want to start working in the nearby mountains? Clarified the Duke. Your lordship, I know you are greatly disappointed because of my past mistakes. As an apology, I would like to make one trade that would benefit your family, Count Zaloth replied. As you can see for yourself, right here are lands that have recently become wastelands due to a lack of livable resources. However, I have found a man who will gladly purchase these scraps of land. He agrees to buy this land for a rather large sum of money. The buyer is a geologist with a huge capital and a strong urge to explore. And who knows, this may be the last time we get clients like this. Excuse me for a second. You're supposed to be having a meeting here, aren't you? Beatrice exclaimed, peering into her father's office. We were just talking about the land sale. A researcher wants to purchase some of the useless lands that are up north, narrated Baron Datern. Some weirdo wants to buy the useless lands. Did I get that right? It seems to me that there's something wrong here. Why is he willing to pay for land that won't do him any good? Maybe there's something there that you don't know about? Beatrice asked thoughtfully. That girl's always prying into everything. It's annoying, Count Zaloth thought irritably. I didn't come to you empty-handed. It says here in the book that there are elven stones scattered around the world. They have incredible magical powers. What if there are these stones in the northern lands? Beatrice exclaimed. We can use the elven stones to revitalize your lands. When agriculture begins to develop in the north, we will no longer have to rely on supplies from neighboring areas. We will provide our own food. For that reason, before selling the northern lands, I suggest you explore them. If there are indeed elven stones there, we could use them. Honestly, I don't see the need to waste time because of some mythical stone. Suddenly it's not worth it? Count Zaloth objected. If there's some person willing to pay that much for a land no one needs, then surely there's something of value in there. Even if we move away from the topic of magic stones, we should still check it out, Beatrice insisted. And even though it's just a legend, I still believe that elven stones exist. So we simply must go to those lands. The Duke didn't believe in elves or magic stones, but to please his daughter, he agreed to go to the northern lands. Beatrice pointed her finger toward the waterfall. In a past life, Ritter had once told the girl that he had found an elven stone in a cave beneath the waterfall. After walking a few meters of the cave, the companions came to a dead end. That's it. There's no further to go. This must be the end, the guards exclaimed. Beatrice approached the dead end and touched the stones. At the same second, the stones vibrated. Behind the pile of stones was a secret trapdoor. It glowed with a blue light that came from the elven stones. Look at the way it sparkles in here, Beatrice marveled. I can't believe such beauty was hidden in this cave, Peges whispered in a surprised voice. Quickly, everyone fell silent. I sensed the presence of several creatures. Quickly prepare for battle. Unexpectedly, the Duke ordered. A silvery bird flew toward the travelers. It seemed to be made of precious stones. After a few seconds, its relatives flew up to the bird. If I remember correctly, in a past life, Ritter told me that in a cave, he encountered a huge monster that pounced on him. These same birds look pretty harmless, Beatrice thought to herself. Oh, look at what wonderful birds they are. They are very beautiful, said Beatrice in an admiring voice. As beautiful as they are, you still shouldn't go near one. They can be dangerous, said the Duke and hid his daughter behind his back. Since the birds turned out to be non-aggressive, Beatrice managed to take some rocks with her. Now it was safe to return home. Weren't you the one who assured me that no matter how the Duke searched for a caveman hole, failure awaited him? Count Zaloth shouted. The man in the black cloak tried to justify himself, but the Count only shoved him with his foot. The second prince thought with annoyance that since he came to the Duchy of Aslan, he had been haunted by nothing but misfortune. Everything was going from bad to worse. All right, Count, stop it. You're making too much noise. I'll be sure to tell my mother about everything, said Ritter, rising from his seat. He should have gone home. There was nothing more for him to do here. All his plans had gone to waste. Your Highness, I realize you're disappointed, but we will make it up to you, the Earl promised. And what am I disappointed about? I can see that you weren't capable of much more than that, replied the prince. I am sorry, but as you know, if the Queen intervenes, my authority in the Duchy of Aslan will become even lower. So please try to persuade the Queen to keep up her sponsorship, asked the Count. By the way, Your Highness, I want to warn you that I remember everything. And I remember about that victim flower that was on the letter from Her Majesty. What are you implying? Turning around, Ritter asked. I'm not implying anything. I'm telling you plainly. I will not die alone. If you try to abandon me, that's when the Duke will know the truth about the royal family. Her Majesty promised to make me the head of the Duchy of Aslan. Let her keep her word. Well, you're right. I was a bit overreacting. I will tell my mother about her faithful servant. With a smirk on his face, the second prince said, I'll have to tell Mother to get rid of that mutt who doesn't know his place. The prince thought to himself and left the room. Walking through the garden, Beatrice did not notice how she fell asleep. I knew I would find her in the garden in a tree, mumbled Artel. She's rather predictable after all. Artel, with the help of his magic, climbed up to the branch on which Beatrice was sleeping. By the way, I have a present for you. I noticed this shawl while walking around the market square. I think you'll like it. Artel took the handkerchief out of his pocket and covered the squirrel with it. Waking up, Beatrice stretched sweetly. Beside her, she saw a handkerchief with a picture of a squirrel on it. From the handkerchief came the faint scent of the first prince. Artel, you're finally back! Beatrice shouted joyfully, catching up with her mate in the hallway of the manor. Yes, I was just about to say hello to your father and Carlitis. I'm glad to see you here, replied Artel to the girl. You brought this handkerchief, didn't you? Did I get it right? Asked Beatrice. In order not to lose the handkerchief, the girl showed it to her hand. And how do you like my present? I didn't know what exactly you would like, so I chose to my taste, said Artel. I really liked your handkerchief. It's quite nice, and now it smells like you too, exclaimed Beatrice happily. Artel, would you like to get something in return? And I want to give you a gift too, so ask me for something at least. Okay, I want you to do something for me, replied Artel. Artel suggested that Beatrice walk with him through the city. He wanted the girl to be his partner in the festival. Let's hold hands so we don't get lost among the people. Artel held out his hand to the girl. Now quickly move away from my ponytail. Suddenly her brother Carlitus appeared in front of Beatrice. I didn't expect you to want to attend the festival too, Beatrice muttered in surprise. Carlitus replied to her that he never misses this festival. Yes, it looks like I'm going to have a hard time today, and I was so looking forward to taking a quiet walk with Stargirl. Artel thought to himself wistfully. Well, brother, I promised Artel today that I would walk around town with him. It wouldn't be fair to him for you to come here, noted Beatrice. Carlitus, if you continue to act like a watchdog, the young lady might call you annoying, prompted Artel. And you should have behaved with my sister in such a way as to not require outside supervision, replied Carlitus. Noticing Pegas, Beatrice hurried over to him. I thought I'd take a look at what's going on around the free dining halls today. If you'd like, we can look together. One of the free canteens is around that corner, said Pegasus. How dare you touch the ingredients in the canteen? You are the ultimate thief, shouted a guard and pushed a young boy with blue hair out of the canteen. Beatrice noticed a universal folding knife on the guy's belt. Why does this guy have a universal folding knife if they don't make them yet? Is that genius inventor Vine in front of me? If I remember correctly, this person died quickly in his past life as he was a drunkard. Beatrice thought. It seems to me that if you support this scholar, he can make great progress. He just lacks support. Beatrice walked over to Vine and asked him if he could show her his knife. Vine complained to the girl that his invention was not yet finalized, but he demonstrated it anyway. You should swing that thing around a little less, or you'll hurt my sister, Carlitus grumbled. Brother, don't scare him, Beatrice asked. I am extremely interested in your story. How did you come up with the idea to create such an interesting folding knife? Tell me about it in great detail, asked Beatrice to Vine. Since the people around him were usually not interested in Vine's story, he was glad to at least share his pain and worries with someone. He was glad to meet someone who listened to him attentively. I noticed that you are an unusual person. You possess a keen, discerning eye. And I realized at once that although you are a minor, you are quite a wise girl, exclaimed Vine. I have one favor to ask of you. Don't ever touch alcohol. Believe it or not, alcohol can ruin you, warned Beatrice. To be honest, I've never tasted alcohol before, so I don't know what it tastes like. But since you're the first to take an interest in my story, I'll listen to you, Vine promised. I want to confess to you that my childhood and adolescence were rather sad. My father borrowed money from the people around him many times, but never paid back a single penny. Naturally, as time went on, my father was moved to lend money. Since my father needed money, he required me to ask for loans from our acquaintances. As time went on, people began to turn away from me. As of now, I have no friends or acquaintances. Vine, I'm sure your inventions will eventually bring you success. They are truly remarkable. I want to spread your inventions. I have decided to help you in all your endeavors. Beatrice sketched a small agreement on a piece of paper. You want to invest in my research. Do you plan to have profits from my inventions? Do you really guarantee me that my income per month will exceed several thousand? Vine asked, surprised when he finished reading the contract. It will be like that to start with, but know that your income will get bigger and bigger every month. You are actually a genius, so your inventions will be in great demand, Beatrice promised. Beatrice decided to recruit a team to help her build her business. In addition to Vine, this team included 2 other people. Chakrante was a master of dungeons, rope knots, and with exceptional manual labor skills. Bruce was an excellent chef. He could come up with several new tuberosum dishes in a short time. The most important thing that remained was to find the funds for the business. Beatrice took her business plan and went to her father. After listening to his daughter's business plan, the Duke handed her the key to his vault. He allowed the girl to take as much money as she needed. "Papa, thank you so much!" Beatrice exclaimed, and clung tightly to her father. The next day, while walking around the estate, Beatrice ran into Count Zealot in the hallway. "It's been a long time since we've seen each other. By the way, it has come to my attention that you have decided to start your own business. I'm very eager to help you out. Is there anything where my help is needed? For example, I could manage the investment money. I could even invest in the business. But at the moment, I don't need any help. Everything is already planned out several years in advance," replied Beatrice. Only the other day there was a rumor that the Duke's daughter had decided to go into business for herself, so she has already calculated everything several years ahead. It's probably the Duke helping her. Irritatedly thought the Count. "Oh, and the second prince has disappeared somewhere. It's been 2 weeks since he went to the capital, but there's still no word from him. What would happen if those insidious snakes just cut all ties with me? Without support, I'll perish quickly. Dad, I've been meaning to tell you for a long time. About a month ago, I overheard a conversation between Count Zaloth and the second prince. This conversation seemed extremely suspicious to me." After meeting with the Count, Beatrice immediately made her way to her father's house. The Duke suggested his daughter go to the garden to discuss everything over a cup of tea. "It seems to me that the Earl and the second prince are in cahoots. They are clearly up to something, and I have the impression that they have known each other for a long time," narrated Beatrice. "I knew that the royal family was behind all of this. I don't know yet when the oath was broken, but thank you for letting me know," said the Duke to his daughter. "What oath are we talking about now?" asked Beatrice. "Since ancient times, the oath of allegiance has been passed down from generation to generation in Aslan. Long ago, when our family was first established, a rule of unwavering defense of Aslan was created. On that day, noble magic was used," explained the Duke. "That oath extended to everyone in whom the blood of the Aslan bloodline flowed. None of those people could do any harm to the family. Although Count Zaloth was born out of wedlock, he too has the blood of our family flowing in him. He too is under the oath of our clan. I've been observing the Count for a long time now, and your words only confirmed my speculation. By the way, he was the one who brought the Viscountess into our family. Even though I have lost faith in the power of the oath, I will still investigate to punish the Count. He must answer for everything he has done. And from this day forward, I no longer consider him a member of our family. He is the ultimate traitor." Before leaving her office, Beatrice left some traps on her desk. The Duke had told his daughter that there were several people on the estate bought by the Earl. The girl hoped to calculate them. Beatrice rounded the corner and watched her study. A short while later, a maid approached the study. The maid snuck into Beatrice's office and took some file folders from there. "Yes, good, you fell for all my tricks." With a sly twinkle in her eyes, Beatrice muttered. Artel invited Beatrice over for tea again. "Hey, aren't you planning on going home?" Carlitis muttered. "Home, you say? That place hasn't felt like home to me in a long time. And you know damn well yourself that a lot of people wouldn't like it if I came back," answered Artel. Beatrice guessed that Artel and his relatives had an extremely cold relationship. The girl remembered that not long ago she had no family either. It was only a few months ago that she had learned what the love of relatives was like. "Young lady, and I recently learned that you have decided to start your own business. I'm happy for you," said Beatrice to the first prince. "Yes, as early as next week I want to launch my business. Luckily, I was able to find people to help me realize all my plans," replied Beatrice. The Duke entered the room and told her that the interior of the store was completed. He suggested that his daughter go and check everything out. Carlitos and Artel decided to go along with the Duke. "I only want to go to my store today with my father. Next time, I'll be sure to call you with me." Smiling sweetly, Beatrice said. The girl had some plans. She was worried that her brother would mess it up. Beatrice decided to name her first store Golden Acorn. In her store, the girl decided to sell handmade items, Vine's inventions, and all sorts of sweets. Beatrice was delighted that already on the first day her store was filled with customers. "I was walking by and saw a big line. I was extremely curious about what was going on here. I am amazed at your scope. Congratulations on successfully opening your business," exclaimed Count Zeleth, walking up to Beatrice. "I don't even know whether this is really... Should I tell you about it? You see, it's quite a complicated situation." The Count spoke thoughtfully. Beatrice asked him to tell her everything without hiding anything. Count Zeleth asked his assistant to bring the macrame he had woven. "Look, my macrame is the same as on the walls in your store," exclaimed the Count. The visitors to the store gasped in surprise. "Your pieces are very similar to those that have been running in our production for a long time. I didn't want to tell you, but I opened my own macrame store a few months ago. Can't you explain why our wares are so similar?" "Count, have you never thought about the karma that can befall you? If I were you, I wouldn't claim that our wares are very similar. If you look closely, you can find many differences," Beatrice exclaimed. "Then you mean to say that your articles are originals and not copies," clarified the Count. "Look at your macrame." Beatrice yanked the edge of the piece. The macrame immediately fell apart. "Oh, I think I've messed something up. You see, we don't intentionally weave flowers around the edge of our pieces. We know very well that they can disrupt the design. I'm surprised that your flaw is so similar to the one we got rid of." "Lady, but one defective product doesn't change the point," exclaimed the Count. "And you bring all your goods here, and we'll see if there are flaws. If there are no more defective items in your goods, then I will apologize to you," replied Beatrice. Beatrice asked Chakrante to bring their macrame scheme. "Please note, this is our first scheme that we have had arguments about. If you pay attention, it does have floral embellishments along the bottom. However, we had to abandon this scheme because if you pull a knot, the whole design falls apart. We created the current version by eliminating this flaw. Here, look, no matter how hard I pull, nothing comes undone. Count, now it's your turn to answer. Explain why our first macrame we remade started selling in your store." "I don't understand how it happened myself. Sometimes merchants get similar inspirations. Perhaps this is just such a case," said Count Zeleth. "Count, such an excuse only makes me believe more that you stole our scheme," exclaimed Beatrice. "It seems that my store's employees acted in secret from me. From now on, I will control my subordinates to ensure that this won't happen again." Count Zeleth realized that his ruse had failed. It was necessary to end this conversation as soon as possible. "And you, Count, a master isn't needed to yell at his subordinates when they misbehave. He is needed to lead them in the right direction and take responsibility for their decisions. So I hold you accountable." Chakrante and Vine walked up to the Count and took him under the arms. "For selling counterfeits, you must walk with us. You will have to be patient until the guards come," said Chakrante. In the evening, her brother and the first prince came to pick up Beatrice to escort her home. I wanted to be the first visitor, but Tails was careful to hide the location and opening date of her store, so I was the very last, grumbled Carlitos. "It's a good thing my father explained the whole situation to me. I'm aware that it was all set up before the Count was brought out. But why didn't you call me? I would have dealt with it quickly on the spot." "That's exactly why I didn't call you in. You're acting too radically," replied Beatrice. "How many times can we be harassed?" shouted Carlitos and drew his sword. Carlitos pointed his sword at the two twin boys. "Brother, what are you doing? These are little children!" Beatrice screamed fearfully. "We are not chasing anyone. We came here as we have something to say. Or rather, we have something to tell the lion," exclaimed the children. Well, since that's the case, you'd better hurry up and leave, Carlitas said in a displeased tone. The twin boys approached Beatrice. Sis, we saw you catching snakes, the children said in one voice. No, you are confused about something. I am not a lioness. I am a little squirrel. I have never caught snakes, Beatrice said in surprise. In this whole company, the lion is me. Most likely you wanted to talk to me, said Carlitas. No, we definitely saw you catch a snake. That evil snake is Count Zaloth. Our sister told us that if it doesn't come back for a long time, we need to find the lion. The twins began to explain. A few months ago, our sister and I buried one small chest. Sister explained to us that it was an extremely important chest. The next day, the sister left for work and asked us to wait for her. Sister told us that if she didn't come home for several days in a row, we would need to dig up the chest and give its contents to the lion. She explained that a lion is the person who is able to suppress a snake. Thus, the twins handed it to me. Unfortunately, everything in there is encrypted with a secret code. Could it be an instructions sent by the Count? Beatrice held out a small scroll to her father. The twins told me that Count Zaloth gave their sister a task. Since she hasn't been back for quite some time, it seems to me that he probably used her and killed her. The time of their sister's disappearance coincides with the time the army supply warehouse was set on fire. Since the body of the woman suspected of arson was found then, I think that's the twins' sister. Definitely, the fire was set by the Count, and to shift the blame, he ordered her to kill herself. As of now, we haven't told the twins anything yet. Narrated Carlitas. We need to avenge these children. Get a code decryption team in here now, ordered the Duke. Father, we have already gathered enough evidence. Why can't we just kill the Count? Why have we been treading water for months now? Asked Carlitas. If we kill the Count now, we can't find out what he's been up to all this time. Well, if we keep digging, then we can find out how Count Zaloth deviated from the family's dinner, said Beatrice. It's a fairly uncomplicated code, so it won't take long to decipher it. We'll have it all finished before your lordship returns to the manor, said the encryptors after scrutinizing the code. Papa, are you going somewhere? Beatrice asked her father. Yes, I'm going to the mountain range for a while. It has been reported that a large gathering of predators has been discovered there. When winter comes, it will be hard for them to get food, so they will head towards people's homes and cause damage, replied the Duke. To prevent that, we are going to use the werewolf's power. So you stay here and wait for my arrival. I promise I'll be back as soon as I'm completely finished. I'm sure it won't take long. You won't even have time to miss me. You'll be using werewolf powers? How amazing it all sounds. I want to see it up close. You'll take me with you, won't you? Beatrice prayerfully folded her arms and unfurled her fluffy squirrel tail. The Duke looked at his daughter. This expedition was quite dangerous, but he couldn't refuse her. After a little thought, the Duke agreed to take Beatrice with him. He had once promised himself that he would henceforth fulfill all his daughter's requests and wishes. He would make up for it. Ah, this is the first time I've been this deep in the woods, Beatrice exclaimed joyfully. She was very glad that her father had agreed to take her along. To the girl, this was the greatest adventure of her life. Of course this is new to you, but good for you, you carried the journey well. You haven't complained once in the few days you've been traveling. Carlitas helped his sister down to the ground. Tail, you are amazing. You were able to follow us all this dangerous journey. You really are a very persistent girl. Carlitas stroked his sister's head. And it can't be otherwise, after all, she is the Aslan heir, the Duke exclaimed. Beatrice opened the suitcases of clothes. Looking at the pile of things, the girl sighed doomedly. She had to bring a lot of hats, scarves, jackets, and gloves, as it was very cold in the northern land. Ponytail, what are you doing now? Asked Carlitas, who entered the girl's room. Beatrice answered him that she was just sorting out her things. I hope you'll be here in time for the beginning of our father's proclamation ceremony. You absolutely must see it. You already know what the proclamation is, don't you? Yes, I was told that this reversal is needed to stop the predators that come down to people's homes during the cold winter in search of food. The only thing is, I don't know how the ritual takes place, Beatrice admitted. About the rite, it's like a proclamation of territory. The power of the werewolf is spread over the entire mountain range, and it drives the predators even deeper into the forest. After that, they don't come near the towns where people live, Carlitis explained. A huge lion walked towards Beatrice. The girl had never seen her father in such a form. The Duke's lion-like appearance fascinated Beatrice. Are you saying that my black mane is inferior to my father's? Carlitis inquired in an offended voice. He only passed me by, but I still felt his immense power. Just how big will the power he will show during the rite of proclamation be? Beatrice thought. The Duke climbed to the top of one quest and roared loudly. Wow, it's like he's not only chasing away predators, but also proclaiming who is the true master of this mountain, marveled Beatrice. In the evening, Beatrice couldn't sleep for a long time. She couldn't stop thinking about her father's power. The girl liked the rite very much. She saw the Duke in all his glory. With one roar, he made not only predators, but also enemies tremble. Beatrice also wanted to try her powers. She turned into a squirrel and began to roar. Of course, she could not growl like a lion, but she was still able to squeak. The next day, Beatrice put on her favorite coat and went into the forest. She wanted to try to growl among the mountains and tall trees. When she arrived at the edge of the forest, Beatrice took on the guise of a squirrel. Okay, first, let's recall the image from my memory. I need to get that exact feeling back and shout with all my might. Beatrice tried to roar loudly again, but other than a prolonged squeak, she got nothing else. I knew greatness like my father's wouldn't appear in a couple days. I need to train hard. If I don't give up, I'll eventually learn to growl just as loudly. Beatrice took in a lungful of air and squeaked loudly. Ponytail, what are you doing now? Have you decided to imitate your father? Carlitis asked with a cheerful grin. He watched the girl from behind a tree for a while. He guessed it. It's probably because my growl has become similar to my father's, rejoiced Beatrice. This all looks extremely amusing. I hope you realize that your voice is too weak to emit a lion's roar? Laughing merrily, Carlitis asked. My voice is weak. I won't be able to growl, and I've practiced so hard. How dare he laugh at me? Beatrice thought offended. Tail, did you take offense at my words? But after all, I didn't say anything offensive. I'm just telling the truth. Are you really going through puberty? Carlitis asked. Beatrice was tired of her brother laughing at her. She ran up to his hand and clung to it tightly with her little teeth. And thus she bit me. Carlitis finished his story. But it was your own fault what happened. You shouldn't have laughed at your sister, the Duke remarked. To keep out of people's way, I went into the woods and practiced quietly alone. My brother came and laughed at my efforts. When I think of it, I begin to hate him again, Beatrice complained. Hate? That hurt you that much, surprised Carlitis. Ponytail, I didn't think you'd be so hurt by me. Forgive me for my words, asked Carlitis and held out his arms to his sister. Beatrice pushed her brother's hands away from her. Looking at the children's quarrel, the Duke decided to intervene. Little one, don't be like that. Can you show me what you've trained there? Asked the Duke to his daughter. I'll give you some advice. Be more confident in your abilities, and then you'll definitely have a loud sound that will pay off your training. Are you telling me I can get a growl as great as yours? I practiced by remembering your look during the proclamation ritual. It was the one that gave me strength, told Beatrice. Well, if you don't believe me, you can ask my guards. Guys, confirm that my little girl will get an even louder roar than me, asked the Duke to the guards. They nodded vigorously. It's great to have these people supporting me. Their support gives me confidence. I won't let them down. I will keep practicing and keep practicing. Beatrice thought to herself and threw off her fur coat. Beatrice gathered all her strength and shouted loudly. Hearing the slight squeak, the guards looked at each other in surprise. Simply excellent. You can be trusted with the next rite. The Duke exclaimed and clapped his hands loudly. The girl shrieked with joy, illuminating everything around her with a bright yellow light. Ponytail, you have just performed your first awakening. The power you used was that of a werewolf. Congratulations, you've gotten quite big. You managed to release the werewolf power perfectly, said Carlitos to his sister. Mistress, you are magnificent. We felt the same energy as yesterday during the ritual. Amazing! A first awakening at such a young age. The guards exclaimed. How is it that I managed to awaken? This has never happened to me before the rebirth. I always thought that since I was a half-blood, I didn't have enough strength to awaken. Beatrice thought. It turns out that my little body has the strength to awaken too. How glad I am for that after all. The next day, Beatrice tried to awaken again, but unfortunately she was unsuccessful. Ponytail, don't be upset. The power is always unstable in the beginning. You shouldn't be in such a hurry. This is just the beginning of your journey. In time, you'll learn to control your power and be able to let out a serious growl. Calmed his sister Carlitos. When the time comes, your power will become more stable, and you can use it as much as you wish. My full awakening happened when I was 10 years old. You remember that a werewolf's full awakening is a special occasion. On that day, you will be recognized, become an adult, and have a new name, said the Duke. Your brother's full name is Carlitos El Aslan. The L in your brother's name was the one he received after his full awakening. Little one, when you are able to control your power freely, then you will be called Beatrice El Aslan. After you receive the prefix to your name, you will have the right to become the heir to the head of the family, just like your brother Carlitos. But after all, I'm not a lioness, I'm just a little squirrel, Beatrice said in a sad voice. That is why you can lead our family in a different way, an exceptional way. In a soft voice, the Duke said, Your ladyship, I am glad that you were able to complete your expedition safely. I hear that the young mistress has demonstrated her werewolf strength for the first time. My sincere congratulations, Pegas exclaimed. Also, take this, the decrypted data regarding Count Zeloth. Pegas handed the Duke the scribbled sheets of paper. Beatrice peered over her father's shoulder at the decrypted data. All her suspicions turned out to be true. The Duke ordered Pegas to bring the Count to him. It was time to cut off the snake's tail. Duke, what are you doing? Why do your guards allow you to behave like this to me? The Count was indignant. Showing up? I have a great deal to tell you. In a calm yet rather ominous tone, the Duke said, Damn, it looks like they dug up something somewhere. But even so, it's unlikely they could find direct evidence. I'll have to try to pin the blame on someone else. The Count thought to himself, Not only do you have something to say, I also have a lot to say regarding the rumors that are floating around the duchy. Explain to me why you gave the young lady the right to inherit the status of head of the family, exclaimed the Earl. I absolutely don't understand what the problem is. This is the child of the head of the family, so he is entitled to fight for the title of the next head of the family. In a calm voice, the Duke replied, The right to the title? Don't make me laugh. The Duke gave the right to some rookie when even I don't have that right. Count Zeloth thought irritatedly. However, Duke Leonhardt, if I remember correctly, this child isn't even a lion shifter. And since she can't turn into a lion, she has no right to claim the title of head of the family, recalled the Count. So that's the reason why you did your dark deeds. You thought that if Charles and I went to war and died there, you would have a chance to get the title, shouted the Duke, knocking the Earl to the floor. And just because you wanted to take over as head of the family, you put a child through such suffering? Papa, I beg you, don't! Beatrice screamed. She didn't want the Duke to make any mistake in anger. It's still bad enough that my daughter saw me lose my mind. The Duke thought regretfully. Rising from the floor, Count Zeloth thanked Beatrice for her help. I did not help you, Count. Beatrice objected and asked Pegas to bring her the box. Count Zeloth, I hope you don't need to be told what it is, she said to the girls in a calm voice. These are the pranks of that commoner. Did she, after completing her task, never die? frightenedly, thought the Count. I have no idea what it is at all. This is the first time I've seen this box and its contents. Pulling himself together, the Count said, Counseloth, there's no point in pretending anymore. The handwriting analysis has confirmed that the contents of the chest belong to you. The method of entry to the secret door of the warehouse is also written here, detailing the location of the fire preparation, said Beatrice. There is also evidence that you covered travel expenses when you invaded the border. Yes, it's all written in cipher, but the handwriting is yours. In order to shift the blame for the arson, you murdered an unfortunate girl, the twin sisters. Duke, this is all an unfair accusation. Don't you know better than anyone else that I cannot harm your family because of my vow of loyalty? Shouted the Earl. Exactly. We are very curious as to how you still managed to dispel such a powerful vow. And to find out, we've kept you alive until now. Did you really think my father didn't know anything? Beatrice asked. If only you had to be dealt with, it would have been over at once. But it took such a long way to pull out all the rotten roots. The note shows who you used as a spy and what cases you assigned to him. One thing is a pity. The note doesn't say how you managed to rid yourself of the influence of the vow after all. The Duke ordered the guards to take the Earl to the dungeon. Duke, you are being unjust. You've made a mistake. It's not me, the Count shouted frantically. Viscountess Surus said so, too, in the beginning. By the way, I know that you have been helping the Viscountess and passing false reports. The day I found out that you left the child abuse unchecked, I immediately wanted to take your life, said the Duke. Unfortunately, I had to put up with all of this for quite some time. I needed to find out who works for you and who you obey. But believe me, I was looking forward to today. If you want to hide the method of removing your vows, have it your way. But know that from now on, it will be painful for you to even breathe. Counseloth had dark blonde hair from birth and eyes of bright yellow color. Although he received Aslan blood, he still couldn't be a lion. But no matter what, the Earl was very eager to take possession of something that didn't belong to him. He wanted to become the Duke of Aslan. Counseloth had a rather rough childhood. His father often drank and abused his son afterward. Even though the Count grew up in the Duchy of Aslan and was called Young Master, he still didn't get the respect he deserved. Duke Leonhart of Aslan was the Count's cousin. At the moment, only the Duke had Aslan's pure blood flowing in him. Counseloth had been in the shadow of his cousin for a long time, hoping for the latter to die so he could finally take the title. When Leonhart came of age, he began to consider marriage. A short while later, he fell in love with a girl knight named Stasia Surus. The duchy began to prepare for the wedding. All the nobles were surprised that Duke Leonhart was marrying an ordinary girl. Usually, werewolves only married each other. Everyone feared that a child born into a mixed family would not be able to withstand the strong energy of a werewolf. Counseloth had hoped that his cousin and his wife would have no children, or that they would be born so weak that they would die before reaching adulthood. But in the family of Duke Leonhart, everything was going very well. A couple of years later, the Duchess gave birth to her firstborn. The boy was named Carlitus. He looked perfectly healthy. The child was also a full-fledged lion shifter. Counseloth hoped that he would someday get the chance to kill Carlitus, and then the Duke himself. One day, a man from the royal family came to see the Count. The Queen was offering her help. The Count knew that the entire royal family were snakes and had a very strong poison. The Count gladly agreed to the Queen's offer. The royal family promised the Count that they would help him get rid of his vow of loyalty, after which he could finally take the place of the head of the Aslan family. For many years, everything went the way the Count wanted, but one day his plans were ruined by the Duke's young daughter. "Brother, I beg you to spare my life," said the Count in a quiet voice. Damn. And what is the royal family doing now? Shouldn't they have saved me right now? I made it pretty clear to the second prince that day that I wasn't going to die alone. The Earl thought to himself. Aren't they afraid I'll tell the Duke the whole truth about them? I must wait a little longer. If I hold out a little longer, I'll definitely wait for help from the royal family. Beatrice decided to think carefully about the situation. She doubted that the Earl had started all this alone. The girl was sure that there was someone stronger behind the Count. Most likely, it was the royal family. Turning her head sideways, Beatrice noticed her brother tossing her white squirrel to the air. The girl wondered what he was doing. "I'm practicing with your squirrel, Solpon. No one knows when a traitor will reappear in our lives and threaten the safety of our family. I'm training your beast so he can protect you when I'm not around," replied Carlitis. "Your apprentice seems to want to bite my head off," noted Artel, who approached. He had to create a protective dome to shield himself from the hostile squirrel. Beatrice noticed that Pegas and several guards were carrying some boxes into the house. "Pegas, what are you hauling?" Beatrice inquired. Pegas answered her that the boxes contained the Count's personal effects. They might contain clues. The girl asked to personally examine the Count's belongings. In the Count's personal effects, there was just a vast array of all sorts of documents and scribbled sheets of paper. Everywhere was the same cipher as in the note discovered earlier. At the bottom of the box, Beatrice found an envelope with a seal. This seal was very familiar to her. In a previous life, the second prince had often shown the girl an image of motherwort. It was his favorite plant. Ritter had used the image of motherwort on his personal items and on the seal. It was also an image that was often used by the queen. "Pegas, tell the coders to decipher these notes as soon as possible," Beatrice asked. "Papa, I have an important message for you," shouted Beatrice, bursting into the dungeon. "Pegas, why did you bring her here?" asked the Duke to his counselor. He didn't want his daughter to see the cruelty he had to resort to in order to find out the truth. "I'm sorry, I'm truly sorry, but your daughter insisted that she needed to see you." Bowing low, Pegs replied, "Little one, you should not be in the dungeon. Leave the Count to me." In a soft voice, the Duke said to his daughter, "Papa, I came here to find out something. Just recently, I learned that the Count has been forging letters to my mother. It is important for me to know if this is true," Beatrice exclaimed. "It is a letter to my father, who is away at war and could not come to the capital at that time. This letter says that I had better be left in the capital. I also know that there were several letters like it. Now confess to me what you did to my mother." "Scoundrel, is it true? How dare you touch my wife?" shouted the Duke, grabbing the Earl by the scruff of the neck. "Brother, calm down. I'm not the only one involved in this," exclaimed the Count. "Yes, that man had accomplices, and I even know who was behind him. These same people helped him bypass the oath of allegiance," said Beatrice. "You don't need to put all the blame on me. I didn't do it myself." The Count wanted to tell the Duke everything, but he suddenly felt very dizzy. "Are you sure it's okay to leave things as they are? I'm talking about Count Zaloth right now. He threatened to turn us in. I'm worried that the Count might have said something unnecessary to the Duke," said Ritter to his mother. "You don't have to worry about that. Do you remember the first secret poison we gave him? It was the poison of domination." The Queen hurried to reassure her son. "The recipe for that poison was composed by 3 generations of our predecessors. In preparation for various difficulties in the kingdom, the rulers kept their secret poisons and elixirs bottled. They kept them in a secret room, which helped prevent the dissipation of powers. I would like to point out that our ancestors never once used this poison. It was saved for really hard times. However, your wise and determined father decided to use this power." The Count drank the poison, thinking it would help break his oath of loyalty. In fact, this poison helped to bring about his absolute obedience. He obeyed the royal family without realizing it himself. Rest assured, if he does anything against the royal family, he will immediately stop breathing. The Duke saw that the Earl had taken his breath away. He couldn't breathe through his mouth or nose. "Chakrante, do something! He must survive!" shouted the Duke. Chakrante opened the chest she had brought with her and took out an oxygen slug. The girl applied the oxygen slug to the Count's face. There are some criminals who can't bear the pain of torture, so they try to kill themselves. I don't want the Count to die before his time," explained the Duke to his daughter. "These sea oxygen slugs help people breathe. I'm grateful to Chakranta for bringing one slug with her. I thought it wanted to tell us the truth, but for some reason it stopped breathing," Chakrante said thoughtfully. "And he didn't stop breathing of his own free will. Someone ordered him to do so. They worked magic on him or something." The Duke thought to himself, "Papa, I know what happened to the Earl. That letter with the royal seal was found in the Earl's mansion, and I already told you that the second prince and the Earl met secretly in the forest." Beatrice held out the stamped envelope to her father. "And I think I know how to get the Earl to talk." Beatrice knew that the royal family's poison could control a person's will. Most likely the Count was poisoned. "Count Zaloth, listen to me carefully. Every time I ask you a question, blink once if what is said is true and twice if it is false. Now, first question. Did you forge your mother's letters to keep my father on the battlefield?" The Count blinked once. "Second question. Did you break your oath of allegiance with the help of a second queen and a second prince? Most likely, to cheat the oath, they used the royal family's poison, am I right?" The Count blinked once again. "Papa, do you know if werewolf snake venom has any properties other than poisoning?" Beatrice asked. The Duke answered her that the royal family's venom had been used as an elixir before. That was generations ago. At that time, there was a war going on and our kingdom was not in a good position because of an enemy general. But at one point, the general suddenly betrayed his country and came to our side," narrated the Duke. "It was strange since the general was known to be a man of honor. Many people wondered what the reason for this sudden switch was. For generations, the people said that the amazing power of the royal family was to blame. People began to speculate that the royal family could use their poison to subjugate people. Then it turns out that by subjugating a person, you can even break the vow of loyalty. By using poison, the Earl managed to bypass the oath." Beatrice guessed. "But still, something doesn't add up. Why did the royal family's poison abilities only become known now? Maybe they used some other kind of venom? If the snakes originally possessed such an ability, why did they keep quiet? If they revealed their secret, they would have raised their credibility in the eyes of the public and representatives of other countries. But I somehow have little faith that they would use such an ability for the sake of simple revenge." The Duke muttered thoughtfully. The Duke decided to continue the interrogation. After a while, information was discovered that on one of the Duchess's visits to the capital, she had been poisoned with poison. This made it possible to control her. Since the Duchess's mind was clouded, she was forced to write letters to the Duke under the control of the Viscountess. The Duchess thought she was writing letters of her own free will and didn't even realize that it was all someone else's plot. "How did it go with Zaloth?" asked the Duke. Peges answered him that the Count had been sent to the disposal room. "That's a lot to betray your family to end up dying such a death." The Duke muttered thoughtfully. Beatrice went to her mother's room. "Mother, I know now that you did not abandon me. Thanks to you, I was able to learn to read at one time. By studying your letters, I learned the letters. You know, I always imagined you praising me and holding me lovingly in your arms. But I wanted to feel it in person just once. Mother, I hardly know you, but I love you all the same," Beatrice whispered. The Duke heard absolutely every word his daughter said. They reverberated painfully in his heart. "Little one, it's getting late. Let's go back to your room," said the Duke, who entered. He took his daughter in his arms and carried her to her room. "Darling, I swear to you by all means, I will make the snakes pay for everything they have done. So don't be sad." The Duke clasped his daughter to him and wept bitterly. The first prince learned of Count Zaloth's atrocities. He also learned that for betraying his family, the Count was imprisoned in a dungeon where he died soon after. The first prince saw that Beatrice had been in a depressed mood for several days now. He decided to act to help her. Artel wanted to talk to Beatrice. but suddenly her squirrel pounced on him again. The first prince had to use his protective shield once again. "What are you doing? Why do you keep attacking His Highness? If you keep doing that, you might get into trouble," said Beatrice to the squirrel. "Young lady, it's fine, don't worry. Your beast didn't have time to bite me," exclaimed Artel. Beatrice noticed the little squirrel's paw marks on the prince's tie. "Goodness, first prince, you have paw marks all over your tie. I'll wipe it off right away. Please forgive him. Those bad manners were instilled in him by my brother," Beatrice exclaimed, and began to clean the first prince's tie. The girl noticed some dark spot on the prince's neck. She started rubbing it, thinking that this mark was left by her squirrel. "Don't you ever touch that!" screamed the prince, grabbing his neck. Suddenly, horns grew on his head. "What's that? Are they horns? Is it because I touched that birthmark? I'm sorry." Beatrice babbled in surprise. "No, you have nothing to apologize for. It's just that with your behavior, you surprised me. And what you touched isn't just a birthmark, it's a signum," Artel exclaimed. "And I have a signum located on my right wrist," said Beatrice excitedly, showing a dark birthmark on her right arm. "This is the first time I've ever seen another werewolf's singular. And if you don't mind, I'd like to touch it again." "I don't think you should do that after all," mumbled a blushing Artel. "But why not? Let me touch yours and you touch mine," suggested Beatrice. "You know, and somehow I don't think that's something you should say to members of the opposite sex. I realize you're doing it without malice, but it could lead to a misunderstanding," said the first prince, and walked away from the girl a decent distance. Suddenly, horns reappeared on the first prince's head. He hurriedly bowed out and literally bulleted out of the room. "He's gone. I didn't even have time to ask about his horns. The first prince was acting very strange today," Beatrice muttered in surprise. "Are you saying someone touched your signum?" Carlitas asked in an angry tone. "Is it really that serious? Then I can see why he reacted that way. I must apologize to him, and as soon as possible," Beatrice said in an agitated voice. "So it was you who touched it? Well, then it's all right. There's nothing wrong with it, you didn't know that. But from now on, don't ever do that again. It's very wrong. A signum is not something that even a loved one can touch," explained Carlitas. "The signum is a special body part that can only be touched by the person you are married to. That's why it can't be touched by a relative or friend." "Bro, what am I supposed to do now? I touched the first prince's signum," Beatrice exclaimed fearfully. Of course she had time to notice my horns, and somehow I think she guessed that I could turn into a dragon. I'm a fool to keep the truth from her, Artel muttered in a frustrated voice. He was ashamed to show himself in front of Beatrice. The first time we met, I thought she was a mere servant girl. I didn't expect that one day I would meet her as Duke Aslan's daughter. I decided to conceal my identity until I could deal with the situation. Because of the relationship between the royal family and the Duke, I continued to hide my identity so that if she decided to distance herself from me as the crown prince, I could remain her dragon friend. I wonder how much she'll be upset when she finds out the truth. What if she never wants to hang out with me again? But how do I tell her the truth without upsetting her? I could consult with Carlitas or the Duke, but they'd only be happy if we stopped communicating. Stepping carefully, Beatrice approached the first prince. "Your Highness, there you are, and I've been looking for you." Smiling sweetly, Beatrice said, "You were looking for me, but why?" asked Artel. "I wanted to apologize to you. I was told that the signum is an important body part that can only be touched by a mating companion. I didn't know that, which is why I was so brazen to ask you to touch it. You are not offended with me because of that, are you?" Beatrice inquired. "You say yourself you didn't know that, so you have nothing to apologize for. Don't worry, it's all right. I hold no grudge against you," assured the girl Artel. "Thank you for your understanding. Your Highness, could you do me one favor? I would like to ask you to bend over a little," Beatrice asked. As Artel leaned towards the girl, she pulled the blindfold off his eyes with a sharp movement. "So I was right. It was you who came to me in the form of a dragon," said Beatrice, looking carefully into Artel's eyes. "Did you realize that after I had horns on my head?" asked Artel. "When I saw your horns, I only had a hunch. I was only convinced after I saw your eyes. Artel's dragon is the only one with eyes that shine like stars in the sky," replied Beatrice. "Once again, she is the first to look into my eyes so fearlessly," thought Arthel. "But don't you resent me?" clarified Artel. "And why should I resent you? For lying to me and telling me that you were your own servant in the guise of a dragon? Of course I don't like it, but it's a small thing. You did help me after all. I'm grateful for that," replied Beatrice. Duke Aslan and Carlitis showed Beatrice what true, sincere love is. They helped the girl understand what it meant to have relatives around you who were willing to sacrifice their lives for you. Artel, on the other hand, was the person who showed the girl what true friendship was. And when he allowed that precious feeling to be realized, the girl couldn't blame him for minor transgressions. "I think you had a reason for hiding the truth from me. Someday, you will surely tell me about it. For now, you must promise that you won't hide anything from me again." "Artel, you once told me that you would do anything for me. Come with me now. I want you to attend to something." Beatrice took Artel's hand and led the way. "Sneaky snakes. Surely there is no more evidence beyond this letter?" asked the Duke. "I've checked all of the Count's belongings, but I couldn't find anything that would serve as proof." Bowing his head low, Piges said, "That is unfortunate, for the paper we have in hand is actually a simple letter of greeting. We need to find something more convincing." Irritatedly, the Duke muttered, "If Count Zaloth's testimony was a lie, then it can be turned against you. No matter how distantly related you are, the Count is still a member of the Aslan family. They can say that you pressured him into testifying against you," said Piges. "And what do you tell me to do in this situation? Leave it as it is? We defended the royal family during a long war, and they stabbed us in the back. Roughly speaking, our ally has become our enemy." The Duke exploded with anger. "You are right. The royal family has not lived up to our trust. Considering what its members did to us during the last war, it's no wonder things have turned out this way now," said Captain Morbin. "I once asked the royal family for help, but was told they would not help us as we were planning treason. At the time, I thought it was some kind of joke, so I didn't pay attention to it." "Treason, then? If that's what they're afraid of, it would be a good idea to let us meet face to face. In addition, the winter in the capital is warmer than ours, so it will be easier for the soldiers to march," mumbled the Duke. "In other words, we should go to war against them. Because of the warm climate in the capital, there won't be any difficulty in transporting military supplies. We will be able to overthrow the royal family. We will repay them for their humiliation." "And why is there an outsider present during the family tea party?" grumbled the Duke. Beatrice answered him that the first prince was her guest. "I invited him to our tea party because I have something to say," Beatrice exclaimed. "Having gathered the whole family together, there is only one thing to say. Is she really going to marry him?" Annoyed, Leonhardt thought. The Duke and his son Carlitis grabbed their swords. "Papa, what did you decide to do after Count Zaloth confessed everything?" Beatrice asked. At first glance, only the second queen and the second prince were connected to the Count, but I'm sure the king knew about everything. He sees a threat to his authority because of our increased power. It will all end if we surrender our position," replied the Duke. "But I don't want to surrender my position and make concessions to the royal family, so there's only one thing left for me to do: declare war on them." "Are you sure you want war? You do realize yourself that it will bring a lot of grief and suffering behind it," said Beatrice. "I am going to march on the capital this winter," said the Duke in a voice that did not tolerate objection. "You cannot fight this winter because a terrible famine is coming. If the battle drags on, the food situation could turn disastrous. Besides, I know for a fact that the royal family will send an assassin to us to ruin the Duke." Frightenedly thought Beatrice, "Little one, judging from your facial expression, you don't like my decision. noted the Duke. I understand you would also like to fight the royal family, but it's impossible at the moment. In addition, by law, members of our family cannot fight until they are 10 years old. No, that's not what I'm upset about. I'm afraid of losing you in this war. I don't want any of my family to get hurt, Beatrice admitted. If the sword of the Aslans, the defenders of the kingdom, goes against the kingdom itself, people will take it negatively and start cursing us. They won't even listen that it's all the royal family's fault. It will be considered treason. I don't want any of my family members, whom I love more than life, to suffer. In a sad voice, Beatrice muttered. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Little one, forgive me. I was only thinking of my own interests. I didn't take your feelings into consideration. I know better than anyone how great the pain of loss is. I promise I won't do anything to upset you, Duke promised. The Duke walked over to his daughter and wiped the tears from her eyes. But since we won't start a war, how will we teach these creeping things a lesson? Carlitas asked. And that is the reason why I brought His Highness the First Prince here. We will take away what they want most from the royal family. The First Prince promised me that he would help us do that, Beatrice exclaimed. And what is it that the royal family wants most? Asked Carlitas. It wants to linger on the throne, replied Beatrice. Beatrice knew that normally Ritter seemed relaxed in everything he did, but as soon as someone started talking about his brother, he would literally erupt with anger. He was jealous of his brother, and therefore hated him. Ritter wanted to take the throne, but Artel could prevent him from doing so. Ritter often called his brother a cretin who did not understand simple things. But Beatrice already knew that Artel was not a cretin at all. While the rest of the royal family cowardly holed up in the capital, Artel led soldiers on the battlefield defending the kingdom. Everyone knows that the king and queen are discriminating against the first prince and want to make Ritter the king, reminded Beatrice. I noticed that my father fearlessly said in front of the first prince that he was going to go to war against the royal family. From that, I can deduce that my father realizes that Prince Artel is not the kind of person who will immediately run to report this to the king. Therefore, let's all work together to help our most prominent ally in the fight against the royal family, Prince Artel, achieve the throne. A change of power in the royal family? It will take a little more time, but at the same time it will bring many benefits. This way we can take revenge on the royal family without going to war. My daughter is a genius. The Duke thought to himself. But on the other hand, why should I put a crown on this child's head? What good has he done for me? To be honest, I have absolutely no interest in a crown, but if it comes to helping my dear friend's family, I'm willing to take the gamble, Artel exclaimed. Artel laughs and talks casually in public, but I can see how sad and lonely he is at heart. I went through similar things in my past life, so I want to help Artel. I will be there for him and prevent him from dying in this life. Beatrice promised herself. In a past life, Artel was praised as a war hero, but one day he died suddenly at the hands of some assassin. At the time, I knew little of the true identity of Artel and Ritter, so I didn't realize much. I am now firmly convinced that in his past life, Artel died at the hands of his family. This time, my family will support him from the shadows and prevent his death. Then it is decided the Aslan family will support the first prince. With a loud voice, the Duke announced. However, First Prince, you should not forget that I am doing all of this to protect my dear daughter and family, not for your benefit. I understand, and I am perfectly content with that, replied Artel. I suggest we keep our alliance quiet for now. I'm sure if my father learns that two of his most hated men have joined forces, he will surely do something about it. We'd better lay low for a while. It'll be safer. For Artel to take the throne, he'll need to gain the support of the other nobles, and that will be quite difficult, the Duke remarked. I've been thinking about that too, and I have an idea. Beatrice set a small bottle on the table. Is this some sort of potion? Carlitos asked. It's not a simple potion, but a very popular product of the golden acorn. Many nobles order it for their tea parties. This product is of the first class, which is why the nobles like it so much. We will take advantage of it. Beatrice replied, My golden acorn store is not only favored by the nobles, but also by the common people. Knowing the nobles' love for first-class things, I will open a high-quality store that will satisfy all their desires. Right now, a large number of common people are on the side of the first prince since he fought in the war defending the borders. The nobles, on the other hand, are supporters of the royal family. With first-class products, I want to win the hearts of the nobles and win them over to our side. In my new high-end store, I will build a free coffee shop for the nobles. There, the nobles will exchange the information we need. This way, we won't act directly. We will constantly be in the shadows and no one will guess what our plan is. With the support of the nobles, we'll make Artel king. In no time at all, a store for the nobility was built. It was called the Golden Lair. It is said that His Highness the Second Prince Ritter visited the Duchy of Aslan. He was very rude to the war hero. I also heard that the royal family is going through a hard time because of the war payment, whispered the court ladies in the cafe. I never thought the royal family would behave like this. I'm sure the first prince went to war to prove to His Majesty that he's a good successor. How sad it all looks. His Highness the Second Prince is acting like the last coward who doesn't want to get his hands dirty. The first prince went to war at an early age, and it played an important role in the victory. The king decided to have a small banquet in his garden. He wanted to make sure that the nobles were still on his side. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion. "Look at this! The palace is collapsing!" the nobles shouted. "What's going on?" the king asked his secretary. He told him that someone had planted a bomb in the uninhabited part of the royal palace. Fortunately, no one was hurt. And why, just out of all the parts of the palace, they decided to plant the bomb just where the poison is hidden. I hope it wasn't damaged by the blast wave. The king thought to himself. This is not just an explosion. This situation is an act of treason against the royal family. Search the entire palace and find out who did this, shouted the king. As you ordered, not only did I visit the Golden Lair luxury store, but I also made it to His Majesty's tea party, exclaimed Pages upon entering the Duke's office. The public opinion of the royal family is even worse than we thought. At the banquet thrown by the royal family, only those nobles who really support them attended. But thanks to the explosion, we were able to change their minds. The nobles were especially angry that the king ordered everyone to be searched without exception. The next day, the Duke announced that he planned to travel with Beatrice and Carlitos to warmer climes in the winter. All this he was doing to preserve his daughter's health. Since her birth, she had been characterized by poor health. The Duke remembered that when his daughter was very young, she was struck by an unknown disease. Beatrice didn't wake up for days. All the famous doctors of the empire were summoned, but no one was able to open the girl's eyes. When, after a week, Beatrice came to herself, the Duke sent his wife and daughter to the warm capital. Fortunately, in the capital, the girl's condition changed for the better. "Hello, baby. Long time no see," unexpectedly said a squirrel. Beatrice guessed that the squirrel in front of her was not her squirrel Sulpan, but Constellation, whom she had interacted with some time ago in the forest. "Constellation, is it really you? Why did it take you so long to come to me?" Beatrice asked. "I came to you as soon as I had the chance, so please don't be mad at me," replied the Constellation. "Well, since you're here, maybe at least you know what unknown disease I have? Why every winter I go into a sleep for a few days and no one can wake me up?" Beatrice inquired. "You can't call it a disease. It is closer to instinct. In simple words, it is winter hibernation, which is peculiar to all squirrels." After a little thought, Constellation replied, "But I have never seen Ritter, being a snake, ever hibernate. So why am I hibernating?" asked the girl. "Everyone has their own body structure and needs. You need not think you are wrong, for squirrels are truly amazing creatures, replied Constellation. Constellation touched Beatrice, and she immediately turned into a squirrel. I want to confess to you that I saw you use the power of a lion recently. You may not be surprised. I've been watching you. I also know there's a reason why that power hasn't reappeared. In order for you to be able to use the lion power, you need to be constantly filled with energy. Constellation kissed Beatrice on the cheek and asked her to try to use the lion power again. Beatrice grouped herself and, gathering all the energy in one point, tried to let it out. A mighty lightning serpent burst out of Beatrice's body. Did I really make it? I did it, rejoiced the girl. Just now, the power of the magnificent werewolf I left in you has burst out of yourself. That power is called reserve. You have an ability that allows you to completely master the power of others, explained the constellation. Remember, the day you were first able to manifest the power, you were next to two strong werewolves. You unknowingly drew power from them. You have a unique ability. You can take the power of others and store it in yourself. Then you can take it out at any time and use it as you see fit. So, if you get the power of a lion and can use it properly, you won't hibernate this winter. To do that, you need to absorb the energy around you. To do that, all you'll need to do is touch a werewolf. The next day, seeing her father in the hallway, Beatrice rushed into his arms and kissed him on the cheek. Ponytail, what's going on? Why did you suddenly start kissing our father? Carlitos exclaimed in surprise. Brother, you can stop being upset. It wasn't a normal kiss. I was just trying to use a werewolf squirrel's ability. I adopted some of my father's power and stored it in my reserve. Beatrice explained. What are you talking about now? Asked the Duke to his daughter. Just recently I found out that I have some amazing abilities. Not only can I turn into a very real squirrel, but I can also borrow power from other werewolves, told the girl. Your awakening was only a few weeks ago, and you've already learned the essence of your abilities? Clarified the Duke. Yes, a constellation came to me tonight and told me all about it. He also taught me how to control my powers, replied Beatrice. Come to think of it, the squirrel constellation shone the brightest last night. It seems the power and patronage of the constellation awakened your ability, the Duke said thoughtfully. Beatrice went in search of Artel. She wondered what would happen if she kissed the werewolf on the lips. Artel was the only werewolf in her circle who wasn't related to her. Beatrice found the first prince in the ducal garden. I have found you at last. I have one favor to ask of you. I wanted to ask you for one favor. May I kiss you on the lips? Beatrice asked. What? Surprised the first prince. That's why I asked you to do it. Beatrice finished her story. I realize you're my friend and you can refuse me, but I'd still like to try. I understand if you don't want to do it, and I won't insist. I have noticed that Stargirl is very intelligent and erudite, but understands absolutely nothing about relationships with the opposite sex. This fact is regrettable. However, I don't want her kissing anyone else. Artel thought. Let me give you the power of the dragon in some other way. You can kiss me on the cheek or just hug me. I think lip kissing is a little difficult with our relationship. In a confused voice, Artel mumbled, Of course I don't mind hugging you. I wanted to offer you one myself, but I was afraid you wouldn't want to touch me, the girl exclaimed. Beatrice snuggled up to Artel and kissed him gently on the cheek. Look, and I can directly feel your strength. You're really very strong, Beatrice murmured in an enthusiastic tone. I remembered that I still have urgent things to do, so I'll go first, said a blushing Artel and hurriedly left. The king had been unable to sleep for several nights in a row now. He really wanted to know who had blown up his palace. Damn, even just thinking about it makes everything inside turn upside down with anger. Who had the nerve to blow up the royal palace? That day, all the aristocrats present at the tea party were questioned, but nothing was found. The explosion damaged all sorts of secret poisons that have been passed down from generation to generation for several hundred years. Your Majesty, you've had a terrible complexion lately. Here, drink this tea. It soothes the mind and body. The queen handed her consort a cup of tea. "And even you have begun to mock me. I have become everyone's laughing stock. How dare you give me tea brought from Aslan's domain?" The king knocked the tray out of the queen's hands. An eagle flew to the window and knocked on the glass. The king ordered the queen to come out. The king opened the window and let the bird into the room. A moment later, the eagle took on human form. "I have come to hear the answer to the question I delivered earlier," said the eagle. "How dare you rush the king of the entire kingdom now? You are a mere servant," resented the king. "I apologize if I have spoiled your mood. However, as you know, it is not I who want an answer, but His Holiness the Pope. You know he does not like to wait. Please give me an answer within tomorrow," Eagle asked. "Try to move even more carefully. We can't have anyone guessing who you are. Everyone knows you are a man who fought with the Aslan family. You are an enemy of our kingdom, a soldier of the Holy Empire," said the king. "We cannot let anyone know that you and I are related." "Don't worry, for the sake of His Holiness, I will fulfill my role flawlessly," said the eagle and flew out the open window. So he believes in his master and behaves rude to the end. If it were my will, I would have twisted the head of that insolent bird by now. But I have to be patient until I get my hands on the power Daddy has. The king thought to himself. A few days later, a constellation came to Beatrice again. He brought a ball of preservation. "Baby, you remember her from the day we first met. You asked me then why you, who had already died once, had come back 10 years. Now I will answer that question for you," promised the constellation. "I called you to this place because I want you to change the future I am about to show you." There was a loud pop, and Beatrice saw the city in flames before her. Constellation explained that this was the future that happened after her death. After your death, true chaos began. A place where people lived peacefully turned into hell. Such a future will come again if you don't change anything. You're asking me now to prevent such a future, but I can't. Unlike in my past life, in this life I have awakened the power of a werewolf, but it's not enough to stop the catastrophe, objected Beatrice. You doubt your powers for nothing. I know you can handle it, which is why you have been summoned to return again, replied the constellation. And you don't need to think about it too much. It will be enough that you continue to live your life as you do now. I want to explain everything in more detail, but the star's powers are running low, so I'm disappearing. Always refer to the ball of preservation. When my star burns brighter than the others, then feed the orb with its light. Then you will be able to see fragments of the memories embedded here. In time, you will realize why you are the one who can stop the world's demise. The next morning, Beatrice took some freshly baked cookies with her and went to Arthel's room. As she approached Artel's room, the girl heard voices. The first prince was chatting with some man. "Then I will prepare the thing you asked for," said the man. "If there is a shortage of things in the middle of the sea, there will be trouble, so it is better to load enough supplies at once," replied Artel to him. "The sea? Artel is going to leave the ducal fortress?" surprised Beatrice. The girl swung the doors open and entered the room with a confident stride. "You say it is the king's order?" clarified Beatrice. "Yes, it has just been conveyed to me. Piracy has been rampant lately, so the king has ordered me to keep an eye on the sea," replied Artel. "The man called father very often sends his own son to dangerous places, don't you think? In the beginning, he sent you to war, and now he sends you out to sea where pirates rage." Beatrice mournfully lowered her head. "Stargirl, I'll be back as soon as I've finished all my business. You don't have to worry about me, I promise you," Artel said in a soft voice. To reassure the girl, Artel squeezed her hands. "That is a lie. I remember very well that from the sea expedition the first prince has not returned already," Beatrice thought to herself. The girl could not sleep for a long time. She was very worried about the first prince. She wondered if his fate had changed. Will they ever see each other again? Suddenly, next to the girl's bed, a ball of preservation glowed. In the same second, Beatrice found herself among bright stars. The girl saw the past, the day she first saw Artel in the form of a black cloud. A few days ago, when we saw you in human form, I was glad you took my side, agreeing that Auntie had gone too far," said little Beatrice. "Oh, yes, of course, that was me," confirmed Artel. Beatrice remembered that about this time, Ritter began to claim that it was he who came to her at night in the form of a black cloud. "It is still unclear to me why Artel did not deny what I said. Why didn't he tell me that day that he was the cloud and not Ritter?" thought to herself Beatrice. "Stargirl thinks I'm a Ritter. That's even good. Let that asshole be her friend." Unexpectedly, Artel muttered, "What? Why do you say that? I always wanted you to be the one to be my friend," screamed Beatrice, but the dragon didn't hear her. Beatrice could clearly see the dragon looking at the windows of her room with regret. He was clearly upset about something. "Stargirl, are you all right? I was worried because you left yesterday very upset, and today you look even less energetic," said the first prince. "It seems like all my feelings and emotions are easily readable from my face. Today the prince is quite cheerful, while yesterday in my memories he seemed too sullen," Beatrice thought to herself. "Artel, let's model one situation with you. Let us suppose that Ritter has lied to me that my friend who is hiding his true nature from me is himself. But the friend doesn't deny it and doesn't tell me the truth." "Why?" Beatrice asked. "I cannot answer you exactly to that question. I might have done so according to the particular time," replied Artel. "As you know, I have been on several battlefields from a very young age. If I died during a battle and could not return to you, you would be sad. And if your friend was Ritter, you wouldn't be sad about such things." "So perhaps I would think that I would rather have him than me, who might suddenly disappear or die." Artel noticed that the girl's eyes filled with tears. "Stargirl, why are you crying? What mistake have I already made?" frightened Artel asked, jumping up from his seat. "You've been saying a lot lately that you might die, and it really scares me," Beatrice admitted. "Stargirl, I'm sorry, I won't say that again. Please stop crying," asked Artel. Beatrice recalled that in a previous life, the first prince had gone on a sea expedition and went missing after a time. Many claimed he was killed by an assassin. His body was never found. In this life, Beatrice wanted to protect Artel with the power of the Aslan family. The girl was afraid that if he was far away from her, there was nothing she could do to help him. "Artel, I want to tell you that your opinion is wrong. You said that I'd rather have Ritter as my friend than you, who is unknown when he might die. But that is absolutely not true," Beatrice exclaimed. "I don't need even 100 like Ritter. I need absolutely no one but you. So promise me that you will come home safe and sound." Early the next day, Beatrice went out into the courtyard to see her friend off. "Artel, write as often as you can and be sure to take care of yourself. Do you think we can see you when spring comes?" Beatrice asked. "I'm sorry, Stargirl, but I won't be able to answer that question for sure. Perhaps this expedition will take several years. I won't promise you anything regarding the time frame, but I promise you that when I get all my affairs straightened out, I will come to you at once," replied Artel. "Carlitis, forgive me, but I will not be able to keep my promise. I told you with certainty that day that I thought Stargirl was a cute little sister and would never form a relationship with her. It seems I won't be able to keep that promise," Artel thought to himself. The Duke noticed that the departure of the first prince had made his daughter very sad. He felt a great urge to comfort her. "Little one, the first prince is strong enough, so he is in no great danger. And I want to promise you that for my part, I will do my best to keep him safe. So you needn't worry about him." "Papa, I always knew you were the best!" shouted Beatrice and threw herself into her father's arms. "Now I'm sure the prince will come back safe and sound. I will surely wait for him," Beatrice thought with confidence. A month later, Beatrice received her first letter from Artel. "There are especially many stars in the sky tonight, so I'm thinking of you even more. It's only been a little while, and I already feel like talking to you face to face," Artel wrote. A maid peeked into the room and alerted Beatrice that the teacher for the successor's lesson had come to see her. The girl put the letter on the table and went to class. As of late, on the advice of her father, Beatrice had begun to attend her successor's lessons. In the Aslan family, everyone was expected to take the successor lessons regardless of gender or age. Beatrice knew that her brother would be the head of the family, but she still enjoyed learning new things. She loved learning and looked forward to each new lesson. At the moment, for the first time in 200 years, a great famine is coming. The bitter cold has gripped the entire continent and is causing extreme damage to the fertile soils. However, the situation in Aslan's domain is drastically different. Pegez reported. Thanks to being able to grow tuberosum and other foods in large quantities with the help of the fairy stones obtained by the mistress, the food problem has been solved. We have taken care of our subjects by increasing the number of free canteens. Everyone in the dominions will spend this winter warm. Thanks to my daughter, the duchy is prospering, so we can't let that go unnoticed. My daughter's birthday is coming up soon. No one congratulated her while she was living in the capital. Even the gifts I sent were intercepted by the Viscountess, exclaimed the Duke. So this time we must have a truly grand celebration. We just have to make the little girl happy. Don't worry. From the desserts and decorations to the gifts, everything will be made by the continent's best craftsmen, Pegez promised. I authorize you to hold my daughter's birthday banquet without reporting the budget to me. Beatrice cautiously peered into the banquet hall. She saw just a huge number of invited guests. All these people had come to wish her a happy birthday. During the victory banquet, there were a lot of people too, but it didn't embarrass me then because the main character was my father. This is the first time I'm in the place of the main character, so I'm very excited. The girl thought to herself. Beatrice noticed Pegs dressed up. A large crowd of people had gathered near him. So I will ask everyone to follow me. I will introduce you to the works of art created in honor of the young mistress's birthday and displaying her accomplishments. Pegez exclaimed and led the guests to the squirrel statues. These statues were ordered to be cast by the Duke himself. Each statue told of his daughter's accomplishments. All the statues were made of solid gold. And when did they have time to prepare all this? Beatrice whispered. The Duke and Carlitas approached the girl. Happy birthday, Ponytail, exclaimed Carlitas. Little one, why are you still here? Why aren't you in the banquet hall? Asked the Duke to his daughter. There are too many people there. I'm shy, Beatrice admitted. The Duke and Carlitas took the girl's hands and led her into the banquet hall. Thank you for being there for me. It makes me feel so much calmer, said Beatrice and smiled happily. The guests were coming in an endless stream, and everyone wanted to give Beatrice the best gift possible. Young mistress, the gift-giving ceremony is over, so I suggest you move all the gifts to another room, said Joanna, who approached. Beatrice agreed to her suggestion. Involuntarily, Beatrice remembered her former life. She had never had such lavish birthdays, and no one had given her gifts. Beatrice could see that today, the people around her really wanted to make her happy and give her a few joyful moments. Beatrice was especially grateful to her father and her brother. They were always there for her and took care of her. It was obvious that she was really important to them. Suddenly, Beatrice cried. However, they were not tears of grief, but of joy. Daddy, brother, you are the best gift for me in this life, Beatrice exclaimed. Beatrice sank down on the bed tiredly. Today had truly been a fun-filled day of joyous events. And now, I want to give you something special. It is a gift sent by His Highness, the First Prince. I found it lying far from the pile of gifts while I was organizing it. Joanna handed Beatrice a small black box. Artel remembers my birthday. How nice, mumbled Beatrice. Opening the box, the first thing Beatrice saw was a letter written by Artel. I look at the stars every night, wondering if I can find a light like you, but there is not a single star in the sky that shines as brightly as you do. I really miss those moments when we were close. Artel wrote. I wish you missed me like that too, but that's probably too selfish a wish. I only want to ask you one thing. Remember me sometimes. While I was preparing the gift, I kept thinking of you. I hope you like it. At the bottom of the box, Beatrice found many different pieces of jewelry. All of the jewelry was made of black stones. Inside were bright yellow stones. The jewelry looked like Artel in the guise of a dragon. Beatrice knew that dragon werewolves gave similar jewelry to people they treasured. Beatrice hid the jewelry in her golden acorn. The girl thought to herself that it would be nice to have Artel by her side this day. Artel, you made me realize that love and friendship are not an illusion. I will not forget you no matter how far away you are. I will keep these feelings and wait for you until the very end, Beatrice promised. Already the end of the pirates' liquidation is in sight. Surely, for they cannot go against His Highness and remain alive. Soon we can all be congratulated on our victory. Rejoiced the sailors. Well, my starlet, I'm coming to you, whispered Artel and smiled happily. A rumor has spread through the town that a certain masked man has appeared and is buying up all the land that is up for auction. He buys land for pennies, and then they find gold or something else extremely valuable on it. When Beatrice turned 16, she decided to expand her holdings. In order not to attract undue attention to her person, the girl began to wear a mask and a red wig. "You have done well today, mistress," Chakrante exclaimed. She had been Beatrice's right hand for the past few years. "And what is the value of the plane you purchased at auction today?" asked Chakrante. "The land is completely useless at the moment. However, I am confident that I will find something of value there," replied Beatrice. From her previous life, the girl knew that deposits of blue stone could be found in these lands. It was often used during construction. In a previous life, Ritter had killed the former owner of these lands and fraudulently appropriated the plane for himself. By extracting a huge amount of bluestone, he made a large profit. Beatrice was getting a lot of details thanks to the ball of preservation. She saw where, when, and what had happened before. The orb also revealed to the girl many details about Ritter. "It's great that I managed to buy back that land after all, before Ritter killed its owner. You could say I prevented a wasted death," Beatrice thought. "That asshole Ritter will be jealous as hell when he sees the North thriving. I'd like to see his face contorted with anger with my own eyes. Beatrice Aslan is but a little lady. What makes her so much more distinguished?" shouted a drunken man in the street. "What creep just said that?" Chakrante shouted, jumping up from her seat. "Those who insult the mistress in Aslan's domain should be punished on the spot. Who is he anyway to say anything, Mistress Beatrice?" Suddenly, Chakrante heard that the common people had sided with Beatrice. Due to the massive famine that had been going on for several years now, several people were dying of malnutrition in the capital every day. In the north, thanks to Beatrice, there was no problem with food. "I am of course grateful to people for loving me, but I feel uncomfortable hearing the praise every time. Sometimes I think they go overboard," Beatrice thought to herself. When Beatrice got out of the carriage, she saw her brother and father. "You've finally arrived, but how long can you wait?" grumbled Carlitas. "I'm sorry, I'll try to change as soon as possible," exclaimed Beatrice. "Have you forgotten that your initiation rite will be held today?" asked Carlitas to the girl. On her 16th birthday, Beatrice became the next head of the Aslan family. Many nobles were surprised that Carlitas had given his sister the right to be the head of their family. "Beatrice El Aslan, I promise you that I will be your sword. I will obey you unconditionally. I will be completely loyal to you," Carlitas promised his sister. The banquet held in her honor did not please Beatrice at all. She longed to see Arthel, but he was still on a sea expedition. It had been 8 years, and in all that time he had never come once. "I wonder how he has grown. Is he about my height now? Or is he taller still? He'll be very surprised when he sees how much I've grown," Beatrice thought to herself. Suddenly, Beatrice heard an excited whisper. The first prince, Artel, entered the banquet hall. "Artel, you finally returned!" Beatrice exclaimed and threw herself around the prince's neck. "Stargirl, it's been a long time since we've seen you," said Artel. Beatrice noted to herself that he had grown and matured a lot since their last meeting. "Stargirl, if you haven't decided on a dance partner yet, dance with me to at least one song," asked Artel. Artel gently touched the girl's hand with his lips. "Of course I will dance with you," replied Beatrice. "I want to confess, this is the first time I've ever danced with someone at a banquet, so I may accidentally step on your feet, and several times at that." Stargirl, you can step on my feet as many times as you want. Don't worry about that. Let's focus on just having fun dancing right now, replied Artel. I never realized dancing was so enjoyable and fun, exclaimed Beatrice as the music subsided. By the way, how did you get to the banquet? You mentioned in your last letter that the raid on the pirates was almost over, but I thought the victory report and the dissolution ceremony would take a long time. Nothing is more important than getting back to you. In order to make it to this banquet, I've put some things on hold, replied Artel. Turn your back to me, please. I want to give you something. Artel took out a necklace from his pocket and put it around the girl's neck. Congratulations on your appointment, Stargirl. Artel, thank you so much for the gift. This stone reminds me of the calm sea. Wait a second, lady. Isn't that a necklace called Goddess of the Sea? This gemstone has been considered lost for 300 years, exclaimed the girl who approached Beatrice. Stargirl, do you like my gift? Asked Artel to the girl. I like your gift very much, but it has caused me one big problem. Now I should think about what I should get for your next birthday so that my gift will equal this jewel, replied Beatrice. What is there to worry about? Your being by my side is the best gift you can give me, said Artel, shrugging his shoulders. And I see you haven't changed at all since we first met, grumbled Beatrice. Why do you say that? I remember you once said that on first impression you thought I was a real ladies' man, noted Artel. Yes. As soon as I saw you, I thought you were a womanizer. But as I got closer to you, I realized that you cared about others and valued friendship. Beatrice gently stroked Artel's head. Damn, what have I done? Without realizing it myself, I stroked Artel like I did Soul Pawn. Startled, the girl thought, jerking her hand away. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to touch you. It was an accident, exclaimed the blushing girl. You could have kept stroking me. I don't mind, said Artel. Suddenly, Beatrice heard someone's irritated shout behind her. That's enough. I can't look at this anymore. Get away from my ponytail now, you smarmy creep, shouted Carlitis. I've been putting up with it because I didn't want to spoil my little girl's heirloom ceremony, but you're being very rude. The Duke spoke in an irritated tone. Papa, brother, stop it. Why are you treating Artel, who just recently returned from a raid, like this? Why are you being so negative towards my friend? Beatrice exclaimed. Artel, are you all right? My relative's words didn't hurt you? My feelings are a little hurt, but I'm used to this kind of thing by now, so don't pay any attention to it, replied Artel. Messengers from the royal family entered the banquet hall. Did you know that only invited guests can enter here? I have every right to kill you. Angrily drawing his eyebrows together on the bridge of his nose, the Duke said. The messengers immediately knelt before him. We apologize for the breach of decorum, Duke Aslan. This is a message from the royal family. They ask that it be delivered as soon as possible. One of the messengers held out a scroll to the Duke. And what is in this scroll? What is this news that had to be relayed through urgent messengers? Has there really been a war? Grumbled the Duke, unrolling the scroll. Is it really again? We answered them that we were against this marriage, didn't we? Ritter Dux Astrum, who has come of age this year, makes a formal proposal of marriage to Beatrice L. Aslan. In a loud voice, the Duke read, Oh, this is nonsense, shouted Carlitis. There's a good bit of head-thinking going on here. It's hardly from Ritter himself, thought Beatrice. Tail, you'll turn out, won't you? Carlitis asked. Beatrice answered him that the mere thought made her sick to her stomach, let alone actually marrying the second prince. Beatrice thought that there was a reason why the royal family sent the marriage proposal on this day. They clearly have some kind of plan. After the palace bombing incident, the aristocrats who were subjected to forced interrogation turned their backs on the royal family. And when they showed their incompetence during the Great Famine, their reputation among the common people sank to the bottom. Beatrice guessed that through marriage, the royal family wanted to revive their good name. Pigs, as soon as the banquet is over, then immediately prepare the order of knights to advance to the kingdom, ordered the Duke. Not only were they secretly trying to pull off an engagement, but now they're sending a marriage proposal in the open. Resented the Duke, Beatrice pleaded with her father not to act rashly. You shouldn't behave like that in front of guests because they might consider it treason. The ball season will start soon. Our family will definitely be invited. That's when we will repay them double, said Beatrice. Beatrice packed her things. She also decided to take the ball of preservation with her. As soon as the girl took the orb in her hands, it immediately activated and glowed with a bright blue light. Beatrice found herself back in the ruined city. It was the future after her death that the constellation had shown last time. Unexpectedly, the girl saw the head of a stone lion. She realized that the ruined city was the Duchy of Aslan. The girl also saw the Duke and Carlitis. Their clothes were completely soaked in blood. They were severely injured. I couldn't protect anyone. In the beginning, my Stasia died, and then the little girl. How scared and lonely was she when I wasn't around? She probably hated her pathetic father, muttered the Duke, looking at his bloody hands. What are you talking about? I never hated you! Screamed Beatrice. The girl guessed that the orb of preservation showed her what had happened before her rebirth. It had most likely happened right after she died. But why had it happened? Why had her father and brother died? The other day, Beatrice had turned 16 years old. The girl knew that with the coming of her adulthood, disaster would strike. She had about 2 years left to prevent it all. Ponytail, come quickly. Your rest of your luggage has already been loaded into the carriage, said Carlitis. Little one, come down carefully so you don't hurt yourself, asked the Duke. They are alive and unharmed now. I still have time to make things right. I don't have to keep thinking about what the orb of preservation showed me. The constellation told me that I have the power to change the future in this life. Beatrice did her best to chase the negative thoughts away from her. Constellation, I'll go with you, said Artel, who approached. Beatrice looked at the people standing across from her. They were once again arguing and bickering with each other about something. All of these people were extremely valuable to her. The girl promised herself that she would definitely change the future to save them.